I'd like to open this episode by offering some thanks to Alex, Jack Mells, Patrick Taylor, Tyler Bias, and Sebastian Romero Cruz. Thank you so much. You all have patronized our Patreon at patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Everybody else, if you have not done that, consider doing it. You get a lot of extra content, and we really appreciate it. It lets us do things like the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, which we just got back from. Once again, patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Take a look. Thank you.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs Dispatch, our monthly show where we answer your questions and we take your responses to this month's games.
Yeah, this is October. It's been a hell of a month and a hell of a year. And we are here to read, to answer your questions, respond to your prompts, and talk about our topic for this month, our special topic, and then read your responses to our games for October. And we're going to do things roughly in that order.
Hell year.
It's
Hellenium.
Hellenium. I like that.
Yeah.
I like Hellenium.
It's time for Hellenium. Let us get into it.
Yeah.
I'll start here with a real bummer. Let's get
Cool.
Let's get into sad zone. Eric says, last month, I unexpectedly lost my beloved dog to a gallbladder infection. I've been pretty shattered by grief ever since, but listening to the network has been one of the few things that consistently brought me joy. Thank you guys for what you do. Thanks. Are there any pieces of media, games or otherwise, that hold special significance because you came to them in time of mourning? I know Dark Souls 2 will likely remain my favorite Souls game since I played it shortly after a close friend and incidentally original owner of my dearly departed dog passed away. The only answer I have for this, so I've gone through a bunch of intense mourning in the last couple of years, and I could not play, I did the same thing as far as games, like just played something that would distract me that I knew really well, so like Isaac and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest answer to this, though, is when my mom passed away, I own digitally one Simpsons episode that isn't pirated or anything like that, and it's not like the best Simpsons episode or anything like that, but it just seemed like the one, like it's just what I wanted to watch in the moment. And like, if you're grieving or if you are at an airport, or there's certain situations in which I think you should just give yourself whatever you want.
Yeah, no, you just listen to yourself. Yeah.
So I have the John Waters episode of The Simpsons as like bought
Zap
on my phone. Zap. Yeah. Just have some cactus candy. I don't know. I just think that I'm sure like that episode could be torn apart. And it's probably not perfectly unproblematic or anything.
Right.
But something about the delivery and the performance that John Waters does in that episode is just really delightful to me. It's always been one of my favorites.
He prefers the company of men, don't we all?
Don't we all? Yeah. They call him Annual Gift Man. He lives on the moon. Like there's something just like I love John Waters.
Yep.
And so that is the piece of media I most associate with grief.
Right.
In general.
Yeah. No, I have many dungeon trains that I hop on when it comes to like depression. However, the one that I most associate with particularly grief is the first like real death in my family that happened to me when I was an adult. Happened back in 2008 when my grandfather on my dad's side passed away. We saw it coming for a long time, and we got to go down and visit him a lot in the summer before it happened. But he passed away right before Rock Band 2 came out. And so like went down, and then just real sad time with the family and the funeral, and it's a long trip talking about stuff and then getting back and then just kind of like trying to cope and internalize that just by falling as deep as I could into a Rock Band 2 hole, which was cathartic because that is a more physical game than usual. Like it is both physical, but also like it demands like a lot of concentration So it was very distracting and cathartic at that particular time. And
I could definitely see
two
that.
rules.
Yeah, it's good. And I also was going to say, like, the physicality probably helped.
Yes.
So,
yeah. Let's see here. Lewis writes, "Hey chaps. So I did a summer of crunchy CRPGs and played Baldur's Gate 2, and I'm currently playing Divinity Original Sin 2. Loved all of it. Obviously, I listened to your Baldur's Gate 2 coverage a bunch. I've got a question for you, and I really hope this doesn't come across as a gotcha. This is
Lewis, I will fucking end you if you gotcha me. So you better hope it doesn't come across as a gotcha.
All right. I will read the rest of this carefully because Gary will take it out on me.
Can you make this in a cower? Can you 20% up the cowering in your voice?
Gary, in the Baldur's Gate 2 episode,
so scary.
You say that Baldur's Gate 2 wouldn't really work with XCOM style turn-based combat. After playing Divinity Original Sin 2 and knowing that Larian are doing Baldur's Gate 3, have you changed your mind? Or do you have any hopes for what they will do with the combat? I don't really get on with the Baldur's Gate 2 combat, and I'm bloody loving Divinity Original Sin 2, but I guess the change might piss some people off. What about you, Cole? Any preference?
This is a quick answer. Like, this is easy. So the reason why I said that is Baldur's Gate 2 has a focus on the rhythms of that era of D&D, which is a lot more encounters than Divinity Original Sin 2. The reason why Divinity Original Sin 2's combat works so well is because it's the star of the show, and there are comparatively few combats in the game, even though there's plenty because it's a really long game, but it's not the focus. If you had the encounter rate that you have in Baldur's Gate, so like imagine clearing the keep that has been taken over by trolls, with every single combat was a Divinity Original Sin 2 combat.
It'd be forever.
It would take forever. It would kill the pacing. So that is the big reason why that game wouldn't work with that, is because it needs to have that super quick, almost autopilot combat to keep the pace up with kind of like the globe trotting, the scale you're doing, and the number of monsters you're going to slay, because that's the genre it's in. So what I would like to see from the Baldur's Gate 3 one, I don't want to just have them do Divinity Original Sin 2 combat again, because it'd feel a little cheap. Even though I love that, it is the best RPG wise, as the best mechanical RPG I've ever played, hands down. But I would like to see them take a more tactical D&D system, because it would work that way. Like we haven't, there's the closest thing is Temple of Elemental Evil, which is 3.5, and is a great, that is already a tactical, RPG system. Take that and tweak it to modern standards, like add enough D&D flavor to something that does have that kind of tactical spacing, attacks of opportunity, creating choke points, things like that. So you could do that in like fourth edition or 3.5 really easily. And I'd love to see them do something like that, and then cut down the encounter rate. You could not have a Baldur's Gate 2 style encounter rate. Like, I think that it would be cool already if the story was smaller, because Throne of Ball, like, literally is you becoming a god. They will have to scale it back.
Right.
I think that would be a good opportunity to scale back just the number of monsters you wade through as well. So that's the reason why I think that would work. And that's what I would love to see them do.
Yeah. Having not played Divinity Original Sin 2, I don't really have a lot of skin in this game. So I'll give my joke/stock answer, which is everything should have the Gambit system.
Yeah. Yeah. Mon ami.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, so thank you, Lewis. A real quick one. Did not read as a gotcha. Matthew says, what's your favorite lesser known or obscure game console? Being a huge weeb, mine is a toss-up between the PC FX, NEC's 32-bit follow-up to the PC Engine CD with a paltry 62 games release for it, and the FM Towns Marty.
FM Towns Marty definitely wins the name category. It sweeps the namies.
It always sweeps the namies. I feel like that's such Retronauts joke that I feel like, I want to take it. But they make jokes about that like every episode.
Oh, okay.
It feels like. No, it's fine. It is a good name.
Yeah.
Neo Geo Pocket Color is my favorite obscure system.
Yeah. Oh, you named your cat after it. Not the color one, but yeah.
Yeah. Pocket is the Neo Geo classic. He's black and white.
Yes, so. Of course. Yeah. For me, let's see here, like physically as an artifact, the Vectrex.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Vectrex is good. And then like from my own experience, I have a lot of affection or affinity for the Amiga 500, I believe it is, which was the PC that my friend down the street had that we had a lot of fun playing bootleg games on.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's see here. Marcus writes, more of a heavy question, but how responsible is media in general for putting warnings in front of content? This is broad and covers everything from warnings about sensitive topics to general metrics like the ESRB. How much of knowing what you can and should play or consume falls on the viewer or parent, and how much on the creator? And how can creative individuals help limit or mitigate any negative impacts their works can have on others?
Yeah. Good question.
We're wading into the controversy zone.
Wait,
Get ready,
welcome
YouTube.
welcome to watch out for fireballs, triggered. Buckle up, Grandma.
Yeah. Yep. Trauma and post-traumatic stress are real.
Yes.
It is fun to make jokes about triggering because people on the right, the worst people on earth are really, really hung up on it. And weirdly, they also seem to be the most sensitive about the most number of things. Really, they get way more twisted about things than I think we over here on the on the cooler side of the spectrum do. Yeah. So
we're good.
We're good.
We are good. I think this is actually like at first this seemed like, oh, this could be a topic, but kind of not really, because I think that the answer is actually pretty easy. In that no media loses anything really for saying, like, I mean, down to specifics, like, yes, in Midsummer someone gets burned alive,
right? Like,
that's not great. I wouldn't want that on there. But as far as like a rating or like, hey, how heavy is this going to be? Tell me.
Yep.
Beforehand, what do you lose? Like, why wouldn't that be on the creator? Like, you might lose some kind of surprise, I guess. Like, so in the rare like Doki Doki Literature Club type example where a game is literally a bait and switch, but those are so rare.
Yes.
Yeah, tell me. Like, and people are, oh man, trigger warnings, colleges are ruined. It's like, well, no one's saying, like, the people conflate it with like, oh, that just means everyone, they slippery slope it, which is like a big conservative thing where like, well, yeah, no. Everyone is just going to fake it to get out of doing work. Like the conservative mind is very scared of.
Well, the conservative mind projects and says, "This is what I would do."
Yeah, exactly. What would the worst people on earth do? How can people take advantage of this? And what if somebody gets something they don't deserve?
Yes.
So they look at something like, hey, if there's trigger warnings, then someone will fake having trauma about the thing that is being warned about. Then they won't actually learn about great literature. Then their college degree is fake and they might get a degree that they don't earn, whereas in fact, it's more like, hey, maybe you just need a heads up about the thing happening and then you still read it. Like most people I know who need trigger warnings for things don't just avoid all things with that in them.
Right.
They just need to know it's coming so they're not surprised by it.
Yeah. Think about how Houdini died, Man walks around getting punched in the stomach every single day of his life. Somebody catches him by surprise, fucking kills him.
Yeah, maybe he just wants to know about it.
Yeah, maybe you just need to brace for it.
I like knowing what's going to, what I'm going to see.
Yeah.
Before I see it, like generally. And a lot of that is just carried across in terms of genre and premise. So to a degree, like, an ESRB thing, and the ESRB has all kinds of problems, and we don't have time to get into that, right?
No.
But the and that's all stuff similar to the MPAA, like, like two dudes kissing is way worse than somebody having their intestines strung up like Christmas tree lights, but so that's a problem. But just the idea, like, hey, this might have sex in it.
Yeah.
Great. As somebody who is sex repulsed, maybe doesn't want to play that game or wants to know it's coming.
Or maybe, my kid is, a little bit advanced for his age and can deal with some language, but, maybe I don't want her to see a bunch of like drug use, or particular kinds of violence. And, I think that it's kind of funny because it can fall to the creator if they opt to do that. But also there are all kinds of other resources that you can go and look at outside of the thing itself, specifically for parents and for people who are taking care of themselves and making sure that they're not going to get bummed out. There are lots of like databases and things, something we talk about quite a bit. Does the dog die? You know?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
pretty
Which
good.
is a good thing.
Yeah.
In general, I think the creator probably should say like, yeah, this is going to have a bunch of people getting skinned alive in it or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, this has Cenobites. Warning, Cenobites.
And it can be like a little slide before the thing that shows up, and the text can be small. Specifically in games, you know, I was thinking about this question, and you know, Capcom and Konami have been doing this for years in survival horror games, right? You know, this game contains scenes of explicit violence and gore. Right. That seems de rigueur, like we don't even question it. And that is, in fact, a content warning of a kind. But also, like, things are interactive, and you could just have an item in the start menu or on the title screen that just says, like, hey, here are the content warnings if you want them.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and it also doesn't have to be in the game too.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about, like, it has to be part of the art. Like for the people, like, oh, don't compromise your art, man. Have it as be part of the marketing or what have you.
Yeah.
Just have the information be out there so it's there if you want to look for it. Like, because, you know, just purely putting that kind of thing on parents just means like a parent has to sit down and play Resident Evil 7 before their kid does, which is, I think, asking too much.
Yeah, it does.
You know, so Resident Evil 7 doesn't do that. It does say like, hey, this is explicit violence and gore. You know, so yeah, I have no problem with that. I don't think it takes away from our work, with the rare exception of like Doki Doki Literature Club or something like that. And again, those are, how many games are there that like do an explicit bait and switch? Like 5, you know, that like, you know, that have any kind of public, you know, presence.
Yeah.
It's very rare that happens. So I'm not going to change the entire system for these edge cases. People out there who are holding up one finger and thinking of your edge case.
No.
There. You know. So thank you, Marcus.
Thank you.
Sid says, so Blizzard is inevitably going to announce Diablo 4 to try to offset the bad reputation they've earned for themselves. I agree with Gary's opinion of 3, but it did sell well, so I highly doubt 4 will shake things up enough to be worth my time. That said, I'm always curious about that whole subgenre, so I was wondering which dungeon crawlers have caught your interest recently. Even if none of them end up being for me, it'll probably be nice to know for fans who want similar games without giving Blizzard money, because Blizzard's bad.
Yep.
Recently, especially. Yeah, I haven't played a new game in this genre for a very long time. That is this kind of, you know, tappa dungeon crawler. Like, you literally spend all of your time in Darkest Dungeon crawling through dungeons, but it doesn't feel like a dungeon crawler to me.
Right.
So my stock recommendation for this, and it's super boring and it's not new at all, is I think Torchlight 2 is my favorite explicit Diablo-like. Specifically co-op. If you're not playing it co-op, I think you'd probably die tears of boredom. But that is my stock standard recommendation for this. I don't have anything new that I think scratches that itch specifically, but it's not a genre I like very much. So
yeah, same here. I tend to have a very limited appetite for those. You know, the ones that I have enjoyed in the past have been the more console like ones. So your Champions of Norath, things like that. Yeah. But those aren't new, you know. We're not getting an awful lot of those. Was Ultimate Alliance 3 any good?
You know, I only played the tutorial missions of it.
Yeah.
I kind of stopped because it was, and I will pick it back up at some point. It's real weird. It makes some advances towards being a little bit more mechanically complicated. There's like a more of an emphasis on blocking and dodging in the game, and even though I am like ride or die for undocked Switch, it was a little small. It was like the screen was a little bit too small to see what was going on. So I might need to save that for when I eventually bust out my dock again. It was gone dockless for like 3 years now, like since the Switch came out, basically. Since I first played Breath of the Wild, I've gone dockless, but it might be time to dock it up again whenever I actually play that.
You pull the dock out and the ports have healed over.
Yeah, exactly. I have to go take it down to the Claire's at the mall to re-pierce them. So.
I'm sorry. You know, I'm going to backpedal that. That's fucking awful, the thing I just said.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. It's very Existens. Very Cronenbergian. Yeah. Like that phone case, that skin phone case.
What?
You see that? Like somebody made a phone case that mimics human skin, like feels like skin, looks a little bit like skin, and reacts like skin.
Does it scream when you hold a lighter up to it?
I haven't tried it.
So, it hasn't arrived yet.
I don't know if it feels pain like skin. I don't know if it has a soul like skin does.
Right.
But yeah, it's worth looking at. It's pretty disgusting, and I don't understand why anyone would own it.
Oh God, no.
It kind of looks like you dip your phone in silly putty too.
Yeah, a little bit.
You know,
I can't imagine putting that in my pocket.
No, it's repulsive. It's a weird, like, gimmicky, gross thing. But you know, it got its 3 days in the sun because they're not.
I hate it.
Yeah, it's horrible. Absolutely awful. We live in disgusting times.
Yeah.
All this, you have the freedom to do anything in the world, and this is what you do?
Yep.
Like, come on, man.
We don't deserve to make it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, this is you. Which,
I believe so, yeah. Mark asks, I don't think I've ever truly enjoyed a crafting mechanic in a game. The closest I've ever come is watching that pot dance around in Breath of the Wild. But I could definitely do without collecting thousands of useless items to make a few dozen useful ones. How do you all weigh in on this? To craft or not to craft? And are there any examples of crafting systems that you genuinely enjoy?
what do you think, Cole?
I'm kind of a sucker for a crafting system in a game. Have been even going back to like EverQuest. Had a good time engaging with the crafting in that. It was a way to, make use of things that you picked up and found and be useful to a party. Nowadays, I think that it has to be in service to another mechanic. Like it can't be the center of it, unless it is something like Factorio or Satisfactory, where what you are doing is crafting an output that will act as an input for something else. And I think my most recent favorite of these has been in Subnautica. Because that is explicitly in service to survival and exploration.
I generally agree with you in that I think it is much better if it is part of the game. Mm-hmm. I think a like grafted on crafting system is one of the worst things you can do to your game.
Yeah.
Like think about like we both love The Witcher 3. Do you have positive thoughts thinking about the crafting system in that game?
Not really, no.
Not at all. Like not even remotely. You know. It's just like so waste of a bunch of people's time and, waste of and it didn't even feel like in that game, like it did meaningful things to drive the, economy. Mm-hmm. I think it's become a weird shorthand for like, we need to have collectibles places to give you exploration, but we need to have such tight reign over the growth, our avatar growth that we cannot put anything meaningful there.
Right.
And specifically in Witcher, I don't mean like potion crafting, which I think is actually really good and flavorful. Mm-hmm. I meant making your own swords. Yeah. In that game. But I generally don't enjoy it. I have fond memories of doing it in Skyrim.
Yeah.
For some reason or another, even though that is like literally just an XP hack. Like you do that, you make dagger after dagger, but for some reason that is a fond memory and I don't know why.
Yeah.
In general though, I think that I think there need to be 90% less of them in games, but that would let the 10% that do have them be good.
Yes.
So you'd get your Subnauticas and your Don't Starves and your Long Darks and stuff like that, and that would be good. Yeah. And then they wouldn't be in The Witcher 3 where it's entirely superfluous and dumb.
Right. Except for the potions.
Except for potions, which like actually makes sense. Like just some restraint, I guess. Like getting rid of most of them and showing restraint for the rest. Mm-hmm. I think would be really good. But yeah, I do find them because what they do is they sap a good feel about finding something. Yeah. Like in Subnautica, that is a game about finding stuff. Mm-hmm. Like you're finding things to help you survive. In Witcher 3, like it's not a game about finding stuff. So when you do find something, when you walk into an area or get a treasure behind a boss or something, it seems like it should be something really cool.
Cool. A bolt of cotton.
Yeah, not cool. Extremely not cool. What also I think kind of works for it, and this is ridiculous, but I also like, as now that I have played through the game fully twice and have kind of settled with my thoughts on Fallout 4, and the crafting in that game actually does kind of work. Yeah. In a weird way. Like playing through it is pretty enjoyable to engage with that system, which is really strange because it's a real mess. Yeah. But I do think that it is pretty fun, and someday we'll have to do that game because it's interesting garbage.
I need an excuse to play it. I've probably put about 5 hours into it and I've enjoyed the crafting. Like it fits the survival context of that game pretty well, I think. But
I want to play it. If we do it for the show, I'm always torn about doing things with mods because I want to actually just talk about the game as it is. Mm-hmm. But maybe I played that enough to where I could do the survival mode or do a mod or something where it's like actually really requires you engage with the crafting, because that's the Bethesda problem is like you start out having to engage with it and then you're a super god 8 hours in.
Right.
And I built my fun house and then I stopped building stuff because I stopped having to because Bethesda.
Because Bethesda.
Because Bethesda reasons. Mm-hmm. Benjamin says, I've been thinking a lot about trends in AAA games lately. The 3D mascot platformer, for example, was a genre that seemingly came out of nowhere in the mid to late 90s, suddenly dominated the market with dozens of games like Crash, Spyro, Banjo, Donkey Kong, etc., coming out every other week, before seemingly disappearing just as quickly as they came. What other trends from the past in gaming feel like they have a time capsule quality to them? And what mechanics or genres that are popular right now do you think will similarly feel extremely era-specific to the Xbone and PS4 era, like 3D collectathons feel tied to the N64 PS1 era? Yeah, what are we going to age out of?
Battle Royale. I know that's that's a stupid joke answer. Like, haha, what is it? Amanada announces Machinary and Battle Royale or whatever. Things like that. But yeah, I would say for this one right now, that specifically, 5 years ago, it would have been things that we were just talking about, survival kind of games.
Mechanics?
Yeah, survival
or even
and
like
crafting. Rust. Specifically stuff like Rust. Minecraft alikes.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm basically with you. I think that those things will eventually go away.
Mm-hmm.
I would love something I think that we associate with this genre that I think will go away because it has to and is already starting to is this game as service thing. Those keep coming up and failing.
Mm-hmm.
Because people realize like, it's very similar to MMOs. Like, people don't need a new MMO; they have WoW.
Yeah.
And that's not quite strictly true, but it's got enough truth to it that like with current the resources that are going into this and ongoing resources of those games, people can't support those if they don't get a wide enough player base, and they're not because people already have Destiny 2 and they don't need to play Borderlands 3 or what have you.
Yeah.
So I think that is like really very emblematic of the now and will hopefully go away.
Agreed.
Because people get really mad at it, really rightfully so.
Yeah.
So Kat Bailey was tweeting today about one, and I'd never like heard of it. She's like, "Have we reached peak games as service bubble?" And mentioned one that failed that I had never even heard of. Like, as somebody who is on the internet most of the day, every day,
right?
Like, I just never heard of it. It's like, man, these guys, stop doing this. You're really barking up the wrong tree with this. So.
Yeah. Another genre that I think is very, very specific to an era is third person shooter. I really associate that with the back half of the aughts.
Yeah.
We still get them, but we don't get them as much. Like that perspective is, and that kind of play feels like it is integrated into other stuff more and more, as opposed to just kind of being like an innovation on its own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
So kind of moving on from the game question, Holland has a question as well, but I think it dovetails well into our discussion.
Yes.
So we can kind of answer it in there or talk about it in there, kind of on accident.
Yeah.
Moving on to life questions. A real quick one. Orkibit says, for Gary, have you checked out the preview for the next Magic set, Thrones of Eldraine? What are your thoughts? Just real quick, I read like preview cards when they pop up in my Facebook feed, but I haven't played Magic Arena in a very, very long time. I'm like 2 sets behind. I did not play the last set either. When I got to that, I got really, really into it for a while and then kind of fell off. So I still like it. I still have the account. I haven't deleted it off my computer. I just have not played Magic in a really long time.
No. There's a second one here for Cole. How are you finding home ownership? I'm partially asking because I have no idea how I'll ever afford one, and also I'm about as handy as a double amputee. It's nice. It is a privilege. Of course, I had to move to a completely different place to make it happen, to be affordable. But I don't know. It's fun to have projects. I bored Gary very briefly yesterday talking about putting up pegboard in my garage and getting my house ready for winter.
No matter how often I neg Cole about it, he still talks to me about his own ownership projects.
But no, I associate it with a bunch of other positive things. Like, as a renter, I never could have had a cat, or it would have made things very difficult. But I own this place, and now I have Greta here basking in the sunlight on her window seat. So,
the no bosses part,
yeah,
is the part that's most appealing to me.
Yeah, I
don't want to be under control of anyone.
Nope.
As best I can, die free. And then Orchid's continues. Some quick YouTube recommendations. We'll go ahead and give these airtime, even though I have not heard of these. So Sirmore for interviews in VR chat, and Jacob Geller has video essays, including one on Wolfenstein. which I should check out because I like video essays. And also Orcupid's loved Duckfest.
Yeah.
Wife, and he had a whole lot of fun. So good.
Thank you.
Glad.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Okay. Jonathan writes, "Hey guys, got a bit of life advice question for you. So I've been GMing a tabletop RPG for about a year now, but recently the passion has nearly become poison to me. One of my players, a genuinely great friend and person, has made this a massive stress source for my life. Due to financial reasons, she had to move to a different state with her husband, and we've been using video messaging to compensate. However, this is obviously something that is therapeutic for her in a way that I am not prepared for or capable of handling. Every rescheduling makes me feel like crap because it obviously upsets her a lot. Adding on to that, her character is making me rip my hair out as she constantly refuses calls to action, though ultimately going along will not stop vocalizing how much she hates having to do something she doesn't want to. Understandable on some level when you work a menial job for a crap company or boss, but good lord. This has literally driven two of my other friends from the campaign. I have no clue what to do here. I've tried gently broaching the subject, but this hasn't worked. I don't know. Am I overreacting? I miss running for my other friends and I want to start a campaign with them, but doing that feels like emotional violence to me." And there's a PS here. Jonathan also went to Duckfest. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah.
I think that this is something that is worth talking about.
Mm-hmm.
With the person in question, right? Like just like not in game and not, maybe over Skype, like maybe give them a call and just say like, hey, this is, are you okay?
Yeah.
How can I help? Things like that. Because it sounds like the person is struggling.
Yeah.
If they didn't do this before, and every once in a while, somebody, people are not their best self.
Yeah.
All the time. At the same time, though, like I think when you're running a game, like you are running it for everybody, and there's a really important like expectation setting kind of thing. Like I think that running DMing is like, partially about like setting rules, like. Hey, specifically like you're talking about the calls for adventure and then going along and grousing about everything. And one of the things, the example I always think about is when I've run Call of Cthulhu, I've always said like, hey, if any of this happened to you in real life, like you would go and live with your parents for a year and try to forget it. But the self-selecting thing about your characters, you need to create characters that are curious enough to continue in the game. Yeah, they should not be here if they're not that. That is the rule for the people you make. You cannot partway through this just be like, hey, I don't care. Yeah. Or I'm going to go home. Like, yes, that might be role playing, but you're going to make characters that aren't that. Yeah. I think kind of framing it in terms of the game, like these are the rules of the game, this is the thing, might help kind of soften the practical side. And then the friendship side and emotional side, like I think you just need to, do a check-in and be honest about it, like honest and compassionate about it, especially if people are leaving the game. Yeah. That is a bummer for them and not fair to those people who signed up to play the game. It's not what they signed up for. Yeah. Conversation definitely seems to be in order. Compassion is the watchword. Like Gary said, especially if this person hadn't been doing this before. It kind of sounds like she's not having a lot of fun playing the game. If she is constantly bucking against the flow of the table, so I would probably, I don't know, just ask like, hey, is there something else that we can do? I value your friendship and I understand you're in a really rough place. Can we have like a separate thing where maybe we have a co-op night? Maybe we do, maybe we, just have our own multiplayer engagement kind of thing that fills that need, that doesn't create so much stress, because you said it right there in the question, Jonathan. You don't feel like you are capable or prepared to do this amount of emotional labor for her. Taken to its logical extreme, this will harm your friendship and it will cut her loose in a way that doesn't seem like it would be good for her. And it won't be good for you either. So being honest and saying, hey, I don't know that I can provide what you need. Can we renegotiate the terms of this? Yeah. And hopefully it's temporary. Yeah. Hopefully it's something that somebody's going through. Yeah. Right. Like I think we all have times like where like, I can't give anything to anyone now. Right. Like, whatever you need, I can't give it. I just don't have it. And like, I need to be a purely selfish being for a short amount of time. Right. and not everybody knows when they're going through something like that. So this person might not even really understand, know that there's a problem. So introducing that kind of thing tactfully too might introduce some self-reflection. I'd recommend any of those things over like cutting ties because of this person. If it is really truly like therapeutic for this person, you don't want to do that to a friend.
Right.
You're not on the hook to give more than you can give. But at the same time, like maybe they don't know. Be gentle about it, I think. But gentle but firm. Tara says, hey guys, great show and great con. Glad I got to meet you in person finally. My question is pretty simple, but hopefully something fun will come of it. What, besides getting to meet me, of course, was the highlight of this year's Portland Retro Gaming Expo for you? Or what was something unusual or striking that occurred? Let's hear an anecdote.
So this wasn't on the show floor, but during our karaoke night, I forget who sang the song, but they sang the song Around the World by Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Sean.
Okay, Sean, yes.
That's the worst. That's the worst song from the worst band.
Yeah, and I knew this song because I think it's the opening track off of Californication, an album that I had as a kid. And even then I knew it was like really embarrassing. I was more there for the, I think it's like Other Side and what have you, which is like embarrassing in a different way.
The best song that's like the best album that is about California and fucking, in terms of both those things at once.
Yep.
That's gotta be in my top 10.
But that Around the World in particular has extremely cheesy lyrics, and also is like shockingly racist. So just watching your reaction, Gary, and the reaction of I think Andrew, one of your bandmates there, and just generally as Sean got up there and unleashed this obscenity on the room. That was a miracle to me.
That was really fun. That was probably going to be my answer as well. That is the worst band. I'm sorry that they're the worst band. Andrew was dying inside. I was dying inside. I don't remember ever hearing that song. Like I vaguely remember the hook, but I definitely never listened to the lyrics before, which are really racist.
Yeah.
Shockingly so. Like they should know better. Like it's really, really horrible. And then up until that point, the lyrics are really bad. The video is really bad. Like we watched me and the band after band practice watched the video.
Yay.
And I mentioned we've been like sending our HCP gifts back and forth to each other recently because we're all Brian, who plays drums in that band, also had never heard that song or saw the video and was just like really groaning at all the shit. Like me and Andrew were kind of goofing on it. So that was a great, horrible moment, which is truly one of the most annoying, disgusting, racist bands ever. Just like, the grade school level of racism in that song is just like, I can't believe it came out. It's like really, really amazing. So that was really good. It was nice to meet you, Tara.
Yes.
What else was also good about this show? Here's a cool thing. The Video Game History Foundation had a Game Boy camera and printer set up.
Oh, yeah.
So you could take a Game Boy camera picture of yourself and get a print of it. I think that's really cool. So that was a nice little surprise. I didn't spend any time in the arcade this year. I meant to, but it was too crowded. It was too crowded this year. The same thing happened with the Lovecraft Film Fest. Like everything you love will get too big for you.
Yeah.
It's like a reverse beta situation. Like you just get smaller and smaller as you get older.
Yeah.
It's a bummer.
Yeah.
So... Yeah, but it was good PRG.
Yeah, and along with the usual stuff that, like, unfortunately, I think I take for granted a little bit, which I shouldn't. Which is people coming up and saying, "Oh, I like the work that
nice
you
things.
do." Yeah, coming up and saying nice things, and meeting new people and stuff like that. Like all of that is good, but it's like it's what we're there for. So it doesn't. It sometimes feels like it doesn't bear speaking out loud.
Yeah, but it was nice.
Yes.
So
yeah. Let's see here. Ryan says, with it being the best holiday season, that being Halloween, I was wondering about any Halloween traditions you two have. Hitting up local good haunted houses, attending annual parties with friends, maybe engaging in a light spate of demon summoning. Additionally, I was wondering what, if any, books you are currently reading. I'm personally reading through Where Nightmares Come From, The Art of Storytelling in the Horror Genre. I need to make a note of that. As well as 1177 BC, the year civilization collapsed.
Yeah. I used to go to a Halloween party that an old coworker threw. Every year. I've told stories about that in the network. That coworker moved to Florida. So I no longer do that. And this year I have no plans. The haunted house I really loved went away.
Yeah.
There are other ones in town, but I don't know if I feel like taking a gamble on it.
Right.
This might be a good hunker down year, which is, kind of sad, but also like, sometimes that's what life is.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
Yeah. I usually try to hit up at least one haunted house. I went to Halloween parties when I was down in Cincinnati, but I don't really have, friends who do that up here. So that's a little bit of a bummer. But yeah, for me, it's just, it's more about just enjoying the weather, the decoration, and indulging in more horror stuff than usual.
Yep. Yeah. And then I started reading Bird Box.
Oh yeah.
The book that the popular Netflix show was based on.
No.
Because I want to watch the movie at some point during my Shocktober, which I think is just probably just not going to end. Like I'm not going to watch a movie a day, but
right.
I'm still going to make my way through my list because scary movies are good all year round.
Yep.
And I've enjoyed the ritual. I haven't hit it every day, this month, but I've enjoyed the ritual of meaningfully trying to watch more movies.
Yeah.
So I've been reading that, and it's good so far. I'm early on in it.
Nice. I am reading currently it's a series of books. It's 3 of them. The Notebook, The Plan, and The Third Lie by Agatha Christoph. That is
Agatha Christoph.
Yes.
That is extremely just an off-brand Agatha Christie sounding fake name, dude.
I know, right?
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's an actual person.
The book of Agatha Christoph. I'm just Agatha Christoph when he's getting hurt. It does not sound real at all, dude. Yeah. And one of the books is called The Notebook.
Yeah.
Everything about that sounds fake, Cole.
It's quite good. It is a shocking series about growing up in Eastern Europe. There's a vague fantasy kind of element, but it's growing up in extreme privation. These 2 twins who are basically inseparable from each other and grow up to be the weirdest motherfuckers in the entire world as kind of the communist regime starts to take over in the area. It's based a little bit on Agatha Christoph's own childhood.
Yes, the teleporter accident. The popular teleporter accident that learned to write.
I found out about this because it came up in a discussion of Mother 3 on Retronauts a long while ago, and the creator of Mother 3 had said that this was a little bit of their inspiration for that. Yeah. So I don't know, that seems weird, so I'll read those. Quick reads as well. Additionally, in terms of comics and stuff, I am rereading The Filth at the moment, and as far as manga goes, I'm reading something called The Drifting Classroom, which is very good.
Yeah, I've had my eye on that for a while.
Yeah,
actually. Casey Woolfolk says, how well does I Am a Professional Video Games Podcaster go over during dates? On one hand, I can see the initiative, hard work, and creativity coming across as huge positives. Rawr. On the other hand, it's definitely a specific niche, and in my experience, there's still a video games are for kids stigma out there. The question assumes that you both at least date occasionally, so feel free to substitute general social interactions for dating if that's not the case, or if you feel like a more general answer would be more interesting. In general, it does sound like a fake job, and I live in a town where a lot of people fake it till they make it. A lot of people say that they do something like what I do, but they're a barista. Yeah. And they do what I do. I'm not trying to minimize it, but the full-time part of it doesn't always get across.
Right.
And in general, people get kind of excited when they hear podcasts because they think that I'm the engineer on My Favorite Murder or something. Yeah. And then find out I'm this thing that they've never heard of, and they're like, oh, so it goes over about medium. The bigger thing that I have run into, at least in the last year, is that it is a really weird job in terms of schedule and demands, and that can place some social strain. Both in terms of relating to other people and them understanding. We talked about this very early on. No one, if you're like, man, I got to beat this game this weekend, people are like, oh, cry me a fucking river. And I have to be like, no, it's actually it actually kind of sucks. I have, 14 hours of game to do in a day and a half.
I mean, like calling it homework is the best way to describe it. Like that's how I've explained to my family that like, hey, I'm going to disappear because like imagine I am studying for an exam, except it's not my GPA that is in danger. It is my livelihood.
Yeah, your gamer point average. So that part, it makes it hard to explain to other people. And then also I naturally keep real weird hours. Yeah. So that can have an impact too, just in terms of like, everyone getting, the assumption that everyone is free at 5 p.m. And like, I'm not always free at 5 p.m. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's when work happens for me. Yeah. So
because I've chosen that.
I've totally chosen it, but it's also like when I work the best. Like I haven't chosen it arbitrarily. It's not like to be out of step. It's just like, hey, this is what feels right. And if there's more, I mean, there'd be more than one, but one of the like overarching things that I've learned as I gotten older is just kind of like going with the flow a little bit more in terms of what my body or my brain wants.
Yeah, no, it's I call it following my energy.
Yeah, exactly. And like, and it's just like, well, this is what makes sense to me. Like, why should I fight this? I spent years thinking that like, oh no, I should actually probably get on like a 10 to 6 schedule every day with really highly regimented playtime and stuff. And it just doesn't work for me. I don't like it when I do that. It's like, I could do that, but I don't like it. Why would I do it? I don't have to. And it makes worse work. It's worse for everything around. Like there's so many things like that where conforming to kind of ideas like that not only makes you less happy, but also makes you create worse work and creates worse productivity and happiness generally in the world. Like it gives worse utility to the world. Like my responsibility is to operate in the way that creates the best work and makes me the most happy. So doing that ends up meaning that sometimes like people will be like, what are you doing this weekend? I'm just like, oh, it's Saturday. So I'm going to spend Friday is my overflow day for editing and stuff. Saturday I end up getting ahead on homework basically every Saturday. Like it is not a party day for me. It is a homework day. Yeah. And it just makes sense to me.
Yeah. Same, and for me, I don't date, but, just in describing to people, I gauge on how savvy they are. If they are not savvy at all, I just say I'm a writer. If they seem savvy, a little bit savvy, I say internet radio. And if they seem,
ultra savvy.
No, I mean, not
ultra.
Yeah, if they're like in the top, third of the percentile, I say, oh, I do podcasts. And that has generally worked for me. So, and they don't tend to believe that I can make a living off of it, but they don't have to, because I know that I do. So,
yeah. So it's best to try not to worry about that kind of thing. And, that's more or less difficult depending on the day. This question, we should pick up the pace a little bit, but this question ties into that. So I want to get this one out of the way before we move on to media, quickly hitting media. Jonathan says, something I've been curious about for a while, as full-time podcasters or internet wizards, what does an average day look like for you? Do you keep a hard schedule or do you wing it? Oh, and PS, on a scale of 1 to horny, how much are you looking forward to the Outer Worlds? Second part, I'm really looking forward to it. Right now, the only way that my brain is releasing good feel chemicals when I play video games is either putting myself to sleep, doing Darkest Dungeon, or getting ahead on work. So I don't know when I will play Outer Worlds. Will has been like dipping poison in my ear about how he's disappointed with it and Disco Elysium is better. And I keep saying like, he's like, how much do you want to hear this? I'm like, none. And then he keeps doing it. So I don't really understand why, but it is, I am still keeping an open mind and really looking forward to it. Like I vibe with the combat in those games. Like he feels like it's a waste of time. So I think that will probably be a big differentiator. And I'm hoping to play it in November.
If one is 1 and horny is 10, I'm probably about an 8.
At least give yourself an 8.4. So
I don't do half numbers, Gary. I don't do half numbers.
Otherwise, they're not going to get the bonus.
No, I don't care.
What is 8.5? I can't remember what the dumb New Vegas thing was.
Yeah. So, but for the first part of it, it's not a fixed schedule. Gary and I have specific days that we tend to record. With the two of us doing our shows, it's either 2 or 3 days a week. And that usually happens at roughly the same time because of the time difference. It always starts at 3 in the afternoon for me. So like I generally during the day try to be up and showered by at least like 8 or 8:30. And, from that until about 11, I take care of stuff around the house or I do errands, things like that. And then I grab lunch and then come back and then start working on stuff. Errands and stuff includes like going and checking on my family or doing things around their house for them. And then like work happens from, 11 to, probably like 7 or 8, something like that.
I tend to get up around 10 these days. I get up, I do any last minute prep for whatever recording I'm doing that day. I tend to record 4 to 5 days a week, so 2 to 3 days with Cole, and then 1 day with Will, and then generally like Jeremy or other somewhere in there. So I do last minute prep over breakfast. I record and then generally prepare for the evening, which depending on the day, so it's either like game night or band night, or I'll go out with friends or something like that. And then tend to do my homework part of the day at night. Try to do my editing on Friday if I can. Friday is my like specific work overflow day. So we never schedule recording on that day. And from 10 to evening or when I want to switch into homework mode, that ends up being a day for edits and other admin stuff. So let's move on to other questions just so we can get to our topic. Let's do a couple media questions, just a couple show questions pretty quick. Lightning round and then topic.
Yeah, let's do that.
Sound good? Okay. Is this me or you?
Let's say it's you.
Okay, this is very quick. Ryan says, maybe more for Gary than Cole, but based on your preference in tabletop games, you've ever looked into Stars Without Number. Having an OD&D framework and mindset applied broadly to sci-fi has been one of my favorite experiences in tabletop recently, especially due to the system's high lethality and being set up to reward planning from the player to avoid or approach combat tactically. I have never heard of it. I have not played it. I am generally not super warm on sci-fi. In terms of like a genre, like I prefer weird fantasy horror kind of stuff, but I will maybe take a look.
Let's see here. I'll do one here from Limo Rec. This has a couple of different parts to it. Hello, gents. A few questions here. Remnant from the Ashes came up on the level recently. Will you be considering that for Bonfireside Chat, given how much you liked Immortal Unchained? I would need to jump into it and play it to have a more specific kind of reckon on it. My sense is that there's some proc gen stuff in that would make it a little bit difficult to talk about, but it probably warrants at least the Dead Cells treatment.
Yeah, if we liked it, like I want to check it out and stuff. The kind of it's also the co-op one or the multiplayer one, and it's like I don't know whether I'll have people to play that with.
Right.
If that ends up making a difference, so like I'm not horny for it, but yeah, maybe at some point. Like every Souls-like now gets this weird flash in the pan. Like everyone is really hyped for it as soon as it comes out, and then it goes away. Like see also like everyone being really hyped, like all our community playing Death's Gambit. Then we announce it, and everyone had moved on to Blasphemous.
And then we're like chastising us for not doing Blasphemous.
But then now we're firmly in the Blasphemous backlash. From people on the Slack who are just like, no, it's actually not that good. Now that we beat it, I'm like, man, you guys gotta.
Well, I mean, no, or we just need to stop listening to them.
It's one or the other. So maybe it's something that we'd want to do after the Surge. I am more interested in Ashen than that. So it's like if it comes up, it'll be down the road. But maybe we'll consider it. The next question says if we've seen Carnival Row. I have not seen Carnival Row.
Have not. I've only seen the promos for it. I forget that Prime has content. Additionally, I also had a great time at Duckfest. Glad you put it on. I was a little too tired to drive to the meetup at Quarter World after, so I didn't take an opportunity to tell Jeremy and Cole that I really enjoy the apparently more niche or lesser commented on Radio Free Midworld Pod. Thanks to them and Autumn and all the regular guests that do the podcast. So thank you.
So go Jeremy. Some Jeremy love. Moving on to show questions. Greg says, what episodes of any of your podcasts would you consider to be some of your best work or your personal favorites? Conversely, are there any episodes that you wish you could remove from the internet and try again? Nothing I wish to remove from the internet and try again that I can think of. There's nothing that bad. Like we wouldn't put it out if we thought it was just like absolute dog shit, I think. There are like parts of it I feel, we've talked about this a lot. I think the Final Fantasy VI sketches are dire. I think there's some sketches that are really bad that are attached to good episodes. And as far as stuff that's really good, this is a really obvious answer. But in just kind of bolstered by a lot of people talking about it to us at PRGE. But I think our Bioshock Infinite evisceration is really good.
Yeah.
For what that's worth.
It was also a lot of fun to do. I am really fond of our Pathologic episode. I feel like that, we have gotten response on that one as well. And I think that provides a service, in that it is an amazing game that we recommend nobody play. And then there are specific episodes of Abject Suffering that I think are very funny, but I forget when we said this, but it's hard to have time for Pride. Because when we put something out, it's we're on to the next one. We're constantly cranking, so there's not an awful lot of
constantly cranking. It's like crank, but with masturbation,
right?
There's
no time to behold something. They're just kind of this seems to have gotten a good response. Cool, and then moving on.
Yeah.
So
no. We put out too much stuff for that. It's not like and this is no disparagement, but a YouTuber who puts out something every once a month. Mm-hmm. And then that kind of dominates the conversation for a while.
Yeah.
For them, for us, we do something for a week and it will dominate the Slack for a short time and then kind of moves on. I think that we're doing work that's really, really good. I don't think that we are doing sub work of YouTube essayist. I think that we put out work that is on par with that at a clip that makes it hard to have any kind of refractory kind of period for, bask or.
Yeah, there's very little afterglow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not really, and also our brains.
Well, yeah, there's that too.
Yeah, I also am not programmed to feel good. I'm not that kind of robot. It's not, it's not for me.
Or it doesn't feel productive. To take time on that. So
yeah. I genuinely think that that is a big part of it.
Yeah,
that's not the work.
Mm-hmm.
Shut up and get to the work is a real value of mine.
Yes.
And that extends into lots of kind of proclivities I have, things that I, attitudes I have towards generally things I feel about, what can be called or confused with or called humility, or, certain kinds of when I get very frustrated by boy geniuses, some of my frustration with Jonathan Blow comes from the meta discussions around him as a guy. And not only, that guy sucks, but not only does, his politics and his attitudes are dumb, but also just hey, this isn't the work, just shut up and make the thing, and let me decide what it is. No one should have ever told you you're a kid genius.
Yeah.
Quite so many times. And it has interfered with your ability to be a human properly.
Yeah.
It's a very frustrating thing that I have. And I never feel that way about just shut up and make the thing,
Yeah. I think that's more, that's probably at the heart of it, just more broadly, is that I think that for both of us, it is about finding the work and trying to shed or minimize things that are not the work.
Yeah.
More so than anything our brains are broken or we're overly humble or stuff like that. That feels more true to me.
Yeah. To me, there's definitely a little bit of both.
Well, yeah.
There's something that is definitely wrong with my brain.
Oh, I'm
sure it's more than that. It's I wish it was just that it was just a positive thing, but it's not.
Right.
It's got a nasty, gross side to it that I don't like. Yeah. Simon says, very specific question. Are you planning on ever doing an episode on Dishonored, Death of the Outsider to wrap up Dishonored coverage? I realize it's not a long game, but it's something I'd love to hear you guys chat about, mainly to complete the series. Also, have either of you played Darkwood? I have played Darkwood. I like Darkwood. I've never beaten it. Mm-hmm. And I don't imagine a version of the show where we don't do Death of the Outsider. And even reminding me of that, it's we should do that in 2020 when we need a short game in the schedule, because it is 3-mission Dishonored, and it is really good, and it would be fun to wrap up the series.
Agreed. Yeah. I played and streamed Darkwood. Streaming it was a bad idea because it is so difficult and because it is so repetitive. It is interesting. I just need to play it in a more, in a less on the spot environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you want to do lightning round?
Yeah, let's lightning round it up.
Okay.
So if you didn't, and before we get to this, just as a basic thing, if we didn't get to your question, we will.
Yeah.
As we now move into the final section of questions.
Yes. So let me locate this here. Jake says, "Hey guys, I absolutely loved your discussion of both Hereditary and Midsummer this month. I watched them both the first time, and being able to immediately jump in and hear your thoughts was a lot of fun. Have there been any other horror movies you watched this spooky season that you really liked or had a reaction to?"
Yeah. I watched The Witch for the first time. I love The Witch. I'm going to go see The Lighthouse on Friday.
Cool.
I'm really looking forward to that. As far as, kind of weird hidden things, I mentioned this. I really love The Ritual. I think that movie is kind of underrated. Like, it has a mixed reputation, and some people were pretty lukewarm on it, but I think that movie is really good. Mm-hmm. Really liked that. And then I actually, at Quarter World at the meetup for PRGE, The Brain was showing, which is an
1988's The Brain?
Well, I watched The Brain. Did I tell you that I watched The Brain?
No, you didn't.
On YouTube. I watched The Brain with voices and stuff, and it's great. Like, it's really funny. It's really funny and weird. It's genuinely like a really, really fun 80s monster movie.
Nice.
So the Brain, if you want something that's so bad it's good, and then The Witch and The Ritual for so good it's good.
Yeah. For me, I've not gotten to watch as many scary movies this month as I had intended to. This is not a new one for me, but I just watched and reminded myself how good the original Wicker Man is.
Oh yeah. Wicker Man is delicious and good.
Yes.
Andrew says, a quick one. Have you ever played a game so much that you dreamed about playing it or dreamed about being in the game? Most of my dreams now are game-like and have rules. I've been dreaming a lot because I've been taking stuff to sleep because I have not been able to sleep, and that is a side effect of that. Mm-hmm. I told you, Cole, this story at PRGE, but like I had a really shitty boss fight in a dream where like a Marguerite-esque figure, like a Resident Evil 7-esque figure, was chasing you as like a pursuit-based section, and the way to beat Marguerite was to go into a closet where there was a low-hanging exposed light bulb that she would hit her head on, which distracted her long enough for you to open a window and get the light in to kill her.
No.
And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why is this light bulb stopping her? Like, I was criticizing my dream game in while playing it while fucking asleep.
I have no defensive vocabulary.
Yeah, exactly. And in my dream, like, it was really bad.
Yeah.
It's a mess. So yeah, it's no good.
Yeah. Minus any obvious like Tetris Effect kind of answers, for me, EverQuest was a big one. Just playing the game or in my head, or dreaming about just walking around in those towns or in those environments, crawling through the sewers, etc. Complete with interface and things like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No.
Let's see here. Reed asks, what is your favorite Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game story? Either as a keeper or a player. Gary, this one's for you.
My favorite one I've read, I ran Horror on the Orient Express, that entire like epic campaign. And that was really fun. Mm-hmm. So to run, that was really good. To kind of read though, and I haven't run it yet. Tatters of the King is really good. I've got all of the Haster related modules that I can find.
Nice.
And those are really fun reads because he's got such an interesting.
Where can you get those? Because I'm hungry for some Haster.
Yeah, get them. They're fun. Like if you have the capacity to read a tabletop RPG adventure as fiction,
I do.
Then you'll dig it. You can buy them on the Chaosium website. I think they have Tatters of the King. I don't think they have on there the second one, the other big one, which the name is escaping me. Mm-hmm. But Tatters of the King is really good. It seems like it would be impossible to run because it requires a level of nuance that people are not trained to look for in games.
Yeah.
Like there are when you play a game, like it's very easy for you to separate things into like good and bad. Like, oh, these are the bad guys. But the cool thing about Tatters of the King is that there are multiple cults of multiple gods, and they're working at cross purposes to each other. So like, whoever wins, we lose. But also you can play them against each other, and it's confusing at first, like who's for who.
Yeah. Like
there's a thing where like a Black Goat of the Woods cultist has a spy in the Cult of Hastur, and I'm like, well, that's really neat. Yeah. Like, yeah, of course you'd be betting for your Pokemon. Only one of these great old ones can go and tromp across the earth. Like, not all of them. So like this world ain't big enough for the one of us. So it's got a lot of really neat stuff like that I would dread trying to get players to pick up on, but it makes it a really fun read. Mm-hmm. So
I am trying to decide if I want it physically or just in PDF. So I've got the tab open.
Good.
Good.
Yeah. Zach says, every so often you guys reference Mr. Show. Those references make me laugh. Mr. Show is arguably one of the best sketch comedy shows ever. I was wondering which Mr. Show sketches are your personal favorites?
Most applicable to daily life is Pre-Tape Collins Show. I think that is the most that we reference. Something.
Worthington's Law, I think, gets a lot of reference.
Yeah. I forgot about Worthington's Law.
Yeah, Worthington's Law is really useful.
Worthington's Law has informed an outlook for me, generally. Yeah, no, Worthington's Law is just water. That's why I forget about it.
Yeah, it's basically for all of us. They should teach it in schools. I'm not joking about that.
As an anti-pattern, of course, Worthington's Law is more money equals better than.
Yeah, and you're seeing unironic expressions of Worthington's Law on Twitter dozens of times every day, and I'm like, man, why did you guys not watch Mr. Show to see how fucking dumb this is?
Yeah.
Other than that, as far as funny ones that are big hits, the two of them that I think about a lot are the Super Pan.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Super Pan.
Don't touch the pan.
Yeah, pan touches you. Touch the pan. I think about Super Pan a lot, and I love the Milk Machine. Obviously, is a classic and also really catchy. Oh, yeah. I will walk around my house. If I'm walking around my house, getting in the shower, I'm nude. It is not infrequent though. Don't stick your dick in these holes. Don't stick your dick in these holes. These holes 3 are not for thee. It's a really funny thing to have to remind somebody.
Yep.
About. Joke the Musical is very good.
Yes. I am also a fan of Mustard Mayonnaise and Mayo Starred.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Just
spread drudgery.
just like anything that they do, and this is carried over into Tim and Eric stuff, but that it is contemptuous of how contemptible, or is contemptuous of marketing that is contemptuous of people.
Yes.
I think that is very resonant and very funny to me, especially given how I spent 7 years of my life.
Well, it's really Tim and Eric is kind of the follow-up to Mr. Show in terms of comedy based on that flavor of anger. Mm-hmm. There's more political angry comedy out there. Yeah. But just kind of I can't believe we're supposed, you can draw a direct line from, Pit Pat, the magical pansexual spokes thing to Grum.
Yep.
From Tim and Eric, and just this is not that different than shit people actually swallow and put on shirts and stuff.
Yeah. What the fuck is Pit Pat, Gary?
Pit Pat. Pit Pat is it's a Mr. Show sketch.
Oh, okay. Sorry, no.
The Globochem.
Okay, I thought that it was an actual thing. Sorry.
No. It may as well be an actual thing.
Right.
But Pit Pat is just kind of this designed by committee cute thing, and then Grum, who is a more disgusting, unpleasant version. Of that. And I'm like, okay, these are my people.
Yeah, I forgot that he was in the show. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And the one this is a weird one because the sketch that has made me laugh the most, but it has worked less for me over time. But I still cannot forget that initial impression. The Story of Everest.
Yeah, Story of Everest is really special.
Yeah.
That's really, really good. Yeah. That show is basically miraculous wall to wall.
Yeah.
Mom and pop porno shop.
Yeah. The highest number is 24.
A drinker. Yeah. There's so much of that is the highest number 24 I think about all the time.
Yep.
And those
just when people argue on the internet.
Exactly. 24 is the highest number. Yeah, it's so good. It's so silly. Yeah. I love Mr. Show so much. I did a rewatch of this whole series not too long ago because all of the episodes are on YouTube.
Oh wow.
You can just watch Mr. Show whenever you want. Yeah. It's also one of the things about Mr. Show too is that there's one bad episode, just one that it's like rotten fruit from a shitty tree.
Which one is that?
It's even hard to remember.
Oh, no.
It's all pretty unmemorable. It's got a couple really long slog sketches in it, but it's I remember just thinking oh, this is the bad one.
Yeah.
There's 4 seasons and there's one really bad episode.
Not bad.
Just thinking about Coupon the movie, how many times a day I think of Warm and Mandatory. It's sentenced to see the movie. That again, it's so astute because it is, in terms, especially now with the way movies are, marketed, pretty timeless.
Yeah.
Mr. Show is extremely good.
Yes.
And then is this me or you? This final. We can get this last lightning round one out of the way.
Yeah, I'll get this here. Ben asks, what are some of your favorite examples of games that are not objectively good, but you like anyway? Games that are real solid 6 or 7 out of 10s.
It's not my favorite. Favorite is hard, but just one that's been in the zeitgeist recently because of stuff we've done. Vampire is like a 7 out of 10 that I think is actually better than a 7 out of 10.
No.
You know, nothing about that game is that special other than the things it tries to do and the tone and things, and those things are really fun. So I would give that probably objectively a 7 out of 10, even though I like it more than that.
Yeah. So the 7 to 10 range is where the majority of survival horror lives. So I have a lot of likely suspects in here. But one I've been thinking about a lot recently is Rule of Rose, where everything about it, from the story to the atmosphere, to the exploration is magical. And the only thing that holds it down is the combat.
Yeah.
And even then it is minimized, but there are still points where you have to engage with it and you're going to die a bunch. So, but yeah, I think that is, that is one that, I would recommend getting a modded PS2 and playing a backed up copy of it because, it goes for $400, open now. So
do you think it comes across fine in a Let's Play? Do you think if it's like, I don't feel like dealing with this nonsense, it would be fine just to watch it?
Maybe. I've got a Let's Play up. I did it several years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I meant for like a consumer end, not from.
I don't know.
I know you have a Let's Play up, but like, do you think that like if you play it, do you think you would get the cool things about it from watching it?
I don't know. I would have trouble feeling the dread in a Let's Play. Yeah. I don't know that I could engage with the horror on from a Let's Play angle.
Yeah, I don't think that horror works super well in Let's Play,
right.
But it does work really well for 7 out of 10 games. Which is kind of a sad bit of it since most horror, a lot of horror games are in that zone. Moving on to our topic, which is when we threw ourselves. Basically, but that's fine. We get to do it. It's our rules. The Australian rules footy of podcast is we wanted to talk for Halloween about horror games and like what makes a good horror game. How can a game be scary? What are very scary games? When does this fail? Etc.
Yes. Topic near and dear to my heart, and especially after this month of ostensibly horror games that at least in this playing didn't necessarily reach up and grab us physically. Not necessarily the scariest kind of thing.
I don't even know if in the first time I played any of the games we did this month. It was the first time I'd played Shattered Memories and those Resident Evil 7 DLCs, but also I don't, so this didn't scare me. And I don't know that anything would, I don't even know if Alan Wake was really scary so much when I first played it. And that's, different. I guess like defining those terms is important.
I think about this a lot.
Yeah.
Because, talking about the ways that certain things can be scary, it's just like any other genre or like literary device, how the different words carry different connotations. Terror is different from dread, is different from stress, is different from panic. Horror can hit you in different parts of your body. Just like, comedy can be either cerebrally funny or it can, be, gut funny.
Like bypass that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that this month, nothing bypassed it.
Yeah.
Like everything this month that was kind of scary, and there are other games we could bring up as examples and should and stuff, is bypasses that. And I think that a large number of them actually miss the cerebral part too.
Yeah.
To where there's not, there is horror that you can feel, like it hits different parts of your body. And there's kind of a magic to bypassing your thought process.
Yeah.
I think that the big issue with this month and in general, like when a horror game fails for me as a piece of horror media, it is going too far onto one of those ends and then not actually landing it.
Yeah.
Like if you are trying purely to hit my gut, trying purely for me to feel it, you can do something like a Five Nights at Freddy's, which does hit my gut because things jumping out of nowhere that I didn't expect, shock me and make me feel a thing. But that's all it's doing.
Yeah.
And then with things like Shattered Memories, which is creepy-ish and kind of spooky-ish, but wanted to be cerebral in a way that I think didn't really land quite for me. Like it was neat, but didn't actually activate anything horrific to me. Like the more I thought about it, I wasn't like, oh, that's a really scary idea. Like that is something I'm actually scared of. It never actually hit that for me either. So I think that like you can kind of over aim onto either of those poles pretty easily. Outlast, I think, over aims into the Five Nights at Freddy's pole.
I disagree. Having played all of those games, those are the only games in recent memory that have really affected me, like scared me in that way. And when I say that, I mean like in the past like 5 years, let's say. Scared
you in a physical way or in a mental way?
Both.
Okay. So I did not find them mentally scary at all. I thought they were silly. And the story was silly in those games. Like, and the shocks, like the jump scare stuff, the physical part did hit with me. But the attempts at the former, like the cerebral part, I just didn't land. And I guess this is a good time to stay in a general, like all conversations, right? Like this is all super objective or subjective. Yeah. You know, so just take any of this stuff with a grain of salt between the two of us, and then also to you. Like if you're like, oh no, I was scared about this. Are these guys calling me idiots?
No. We're just it's different experience. You know, this is just like talking about comedy. Why does something make me laugh and doesn't make you laugh, and vice versa? You know, it's going to be very personal. I think Outlast 1 in particular does have a lot of very silly aspects to it. The Whistleblower DLC in particular. That is, like that's documented. I streamed that, and there is a scene that got me so worked up and so like just panicked that I kind of threw up. Not like, but like just like gagged, and then like a little bit of stuff came up. And then Outlast 2 in particular as well, I think is a little bit more heady in terms of, engaging with kind of just like the nature of religion, in an interesting way. Like those games are tip top for me in terms of like, if you want to feel something when you're playing these, like this is going to be the one.
Kind of moving generally, so we're not like bashing Pokemons against each other, because it's also interesting too, because similar to comedy, like there's nothing really to say after that point, right? Like you get to that point where somebody talks about what's scary for them and what's not. You can't convince somebody to, as much as there's that article, like you can't actually explain Tim and Eric to your parents and have them find it funny. You can explain why you think it's funny, and you can explain what they're doing. Like you can explain that this is not arbitrary trash. There's intentionality going into this. You can see the strings and the craft that went into this, but you can never change whether that works right for somebody, really. So kind of like moving generally, like what are things, focusing on back half, like we'll start with the, I guess the like amygdala, stomach fear, body fear and stuff. Like what makes a good horror game that does that? Like what aspects of it, what are some examples? What are things that like actually, what are they doing? What are the mechanics of fear?
Yeah. So it needs to be mechanical, specifically because we're talking about video games. It cannot just be visuals. It cannot just be audio. Although, horror games in general, I think benefit more from, fidelity and attention to the craft in audio and visual. But it has to be something that places you into a situation where even if you can reload, even if that there are really no consequences, it makes you dread going forward. I shouldn't have used the dread word because that's very specific, but like I know that a game is working on me when I do not want to go through the next door, when I would rather leave the room that I associate with that game. Specifically contrast Amnesia, The Dark Descent, with even earlier stuff like Penumbra, or like, Machine for Pigs, or even Soma to a certain extent. Amnesia, Machine for Pigs, or Amnesia, The Dark Descent, among that studio's output has captured that feeling the most for me.
I think that's their scariest game. Like easy peasy, their scariest game. Like the, but like in terms of like breaking down what it's doing, right, to get to that point, like I agree with you that mechanical sense is really pretty important. Like even if it's down to I need something through that door. Like it can't be this is the next track on the railroad. That's why I need to do it, because to me that kind of artificiality detracts. Like it's all artificial, but that kind of, I have to go through this door because it's the way forward. I can feel that kind of stomach horror a lot more if there's something I need. through that door.
Yeah.
And that oftentimes is a key or something like that. And I find that games that do operate on this feeling horror very specifically are a lot of times there is no element of surprise. Like a jump scare will make me scared. But and for some reason, Doom 3, which is a horror game, is coming to mind of like hey, there's a shotgun in the middle of the room. Something bad's going to happen when I pick it up.
Right.
I think that's actually really pretty effective, even if I know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because the anticipation is a form of dread, right? Like you get your Hitchcock, like it's not interesting to have a bomb go off during dinner. It's interesting to have two people talking and show the bomb.
Yes.
And they don't know about it. It has that feeling to me. Also, not knowing how something is going to happen. Like you have a lot of freedom in terms of expressing something shocking like that happening. If you make the player need something, so they're kind of confused, like, hey, I want that gun. Yeah. I need that. I want that. And I know something's going to happen because I'm playing Doom 3. I have no idea how it's going to happen.
Right. I don't know which direction it's going to come from. Yep. I don't know which monster it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be a feature of the room. Something is going to get me because I am being baited out.
Yes. That is a really good way to get body fear for me, or like elemental fear for me personally. Yeah.
Even looking back at kind of more classic examples, things in the Silent Hill or Resident Evil kind of mold, where you have an established location, you have a map that you are trying to clear. You're going from door to door and you are checking to see what's in every room. The uncertainty that, okay, this room could be, one of three things. It could be, the one part of a puzzle that is the meta puzzle for this area, where I'm going to get a code or I'm going to get a key item. It could have resources in it. Or it could be combat that I'm going to be trapped into, like that kind of slot machine aspect to it, where like I am, there are a few different ways that this could break that will, really push me over the edge, because a well-made survival horror game is going to keep you on that edge as best it can. And then kind of like, bracing yourself for which of these potential outcomes it's going to be. That dread and that anticipation more than anything can sometimes get to me as well. Yeah. I think that's generally like also a good real way to do it, because you have hope. Yeah. Like in both those situations, right? Like both those comparisons, like my hope is that I will succeed more. Like I'm getting a shotgun in a Doom game, and if that doesn't inspire hope in you, like, who what's
are
wrong
you?
With you?
What's wrong with you? Or like, hey, I need those resources. Or like, in a Resident Evil or Silent Hill, like this is the goal. Like I'm trying to get to the new area. Like I might get the shield key. Like I need that. Yeah.
And like this carries over a little bit from like Soul stuff, but it happens in horror games as well. Like, God, I hope there's a save room. Like it has been so long since I've had a save room. I am extended very far out on a ledge here.
That's a really big deal in terms of creating that body kind of fear. Yeah. And it's an interesting thing, because I feel like, so I know those that it's not just those situations that create that, right? Right. Like it's related to dread. Something that I think that games do when they want to create that, like dread is a body fear. Yes. It's not often a cerebral fear. Yeah. And when they want to create a body fear or a dread fear, I think a lot of times the best ones use a lot of tricks that the best movies do for this in terms of like pacing. Yeah. Emptiness is your friend in these kind of situations. Like in that opening up doors example in Resident Evil or Silent Hill, maybe this door has like nothing. This room has like basically nothing in it, or this hallway is longer than it needs to be. Yeah. To do this, or the light is really, really creepy in this hallway through that, or they do it by not firing the jump. So hey, I've grabbed the item or the shield key or something and nothing happened, but I know something will because that's the rules of the game I'm playing. Yeah. But it doesn't happen.
Picture yourself playing. You're sitting on the floor in front of the television. You may or may not be a little kid in the situation. You're sitting there with your legs crossed and you start, sitting straight up. And as you're playing, the game's job is to make you lean forward without realizing it. And then to fire the trap when you were at the closest point. Or to make you think that it's going to fire the trap when you're at the closest point. Withhold that and then hit you again.
And then you never know when it's going to go through. Like there is, you can play it both ways, which is really cool. And I think most really successful horror games do that.
Yeah.
They do the like, I knew something was going to happen, but it was still scary, or I thought something was going to happen and it didn't, and now I am uncertain for the rest of my life.
Yes.
Like it'd be like, hey, person listening to this, I put Alaskan king crab somewhere in your house. That's it. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like the Seinfeld episode. I took something from your apartment and put it in the toilet, and that causes Jerry to go around and just like get rid of everything.
Lose his mind.
Right. Yeah. Just because yep. Something here is poison now. Yeah.
So like, what else in terms of like body fear? Like, what is a good a way that a game can do this well or poorly? Like, what is a shitty? What do you think is like a shitty way?
I mean,
the game's trying to express this body fear, other than like Five Nights, which we already mentioned.
Right.
Like I think those games are a laughing stock. I think they are interesting.
Yeah.
While also being nothing I'd ever want to play. And successful at doing one thing that is probably not worth doing.
I mean, just and like taking that one thing and iterating on it in different ways throughout the series. It was interesting, because I don't know if the piece is out yet, but spending the weekend around Will, and he was talking about the series that he is, or the piece that he is writing about the Five Nights at Freddy's series. It is out. Yeah. Just hearing him describe stuff, kind of the different ways that series went, it kind of makes me curious in a way that makes me also in a way where I also understand that it's not necessarily for me. Something that I think is fraught that can either really make this work or can be exploitative and bad or just kind of miss the mark is gore. Honestly, that just the revulsion or disgust, would be the name for that. And like it's real. There's a real fine line between like what is Saw and what is Silent
Saw
Hill. Saw 2's the better film.
I know that was the joke.
What is exactly. Yeah. I thought you were going to say something about Saw 2 and I was going to come at you.
I mean, I don't think it's great or anything, but it is better.
Yes.
Like it's all right.
Yeah.
Surprisingly all right.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just like showing you something that the body rejects. So showing you something that fires those mirror neurons about pain, or showing you something that is evidence that something terrible has happened here before and and will happen here again, or working that into the environment, specifically thinking about the Silent Hill Otherworld, where as as the series progresses, things start to get more and more organic in terms of the walls gaining like a meat moss kind of texture. I think it's really fraught because, played one way or played too heavily, it is bad and can take you out of it. However, played well, I really, really appreciate gore. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too, because it for some people it is a pure driver, right? Like there's a magazine about it. And then you get people who are just like 1,000% into these Rob Zombie movies that like, are basically that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is really gory, or this has really good gore. In it, and that's not something I really relate to. I think that misses the mark more often than not for me. But we both were like into the extreme gore in Resident Evil 2, the remake, which very noteworthy falls off.
Yes,
that is the beginning of that game. The first couple scenes you see it, and then it basically stops. Like doing that. Like once you get to the lab, like we're past gore.
Yeah,
we're not going to deal with that, and that's very intentional. Like that's a tool, and I think that is best when used as a tool.
Yeah,
and in that game, that is used as a tool to kind of set a tone and consequence and unease that they knew was powerful enough to coast on for a very long time.
Yes,
we're not going to give you a chance to desensitize yourself to this because we're going to show one person's face falling off, not 1,000 people's faces falling off.
Yes, and something that is unspoken or was unspoken in that summary because it feels obvious to me is that gore is best used as a vehicle for body horror. Yeah, to me anyway.
There's something that I think about a lot when I think about that, and this had a big revulsion response from me, but I also couldn't it wasn't an appealing one. Is the movie Nightbreed.
Okay.
Which is a Wes Craven movie, which I dig Wes Craven. I'm pretty sure it's Wes Craven. And in the movie, there's these mutants. There's like freak monsters that live in the sewer or whatever. And there are like people who know about them, like conspiracy theorist people. And they all have these like gross deformities. And someone's like, I'm just like you. I'm one of you. And he cuts and peels off his scalp while he's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
And it incredibly intense reaction from me.
Yeah.
Like I could not watch it.
Yeah.
You know, I just like could not watch it. But it wasn't like the movie. The rest of it was like about these kind of weird party freaks who live in the sewer and like their class struggles and stuff. Like it didn't fit.
Yeah.
It was a really bad, like an effective tool that was used at a really bad time in a weird way that like it. So I guess like, you know, playing into the Resident Evil 2 thing is that like timing of this stuff matters, like precision in terms of body horror and gore is like the most important thing, I think.
Yeah. Nightbreed was directed by Clive Barker, which sounds like a fucking mess.
I get Wes Craven and Clive Barker mixed up.
Authors should not direct. I'm sorry.
It's the well, I mean, you know, Clive Barker's done a bunch of cool stuff.
Yeah.
The you know, but like, yeah, it's not yeah. So let's talk about cerebral horror. For a little bit. Yeah.
So for me, you know, when we talk about how horror can hit us, you know, in different places, cerebral horror hits me a little bit less when it goes right for the head or goes right for the brain. Then cosmic horror oftentimes falls down by trying to play too hard with scale. You know, like I don't necessarily find the universe is infinite to be an especially effective route of horror. Cerebral horror actually works better for me when it hits my skin, when it introduces a concept or an idea that you kind of like, if it feels like it sticks to you, it feels like you cannot quite shake it off or wash it off, and for that it needs to be emotionally true. And it needs to be smart enough to articulate it in a way that reveals just enough and does not assume too much. But you know, it compels you to draw out the implications of it as it goes on. For me, the best example of something like this that we absolutely need to cover on the show, because it is also one of the best depictions of depression in a game that I have seen, is The Cat Lady. The Cat Lady is fucking S tier when it comes to cerebral and emotional horror that hits and resonates in a very real way.
Yeah, I'm down. I would be, you know, interested. I think I am with you in terms of like something, you know, hitting your skin or what have you. I think that like for me, this is where so like if body horror or not body, you know, horror you feel in your body misses the mark for me. Where it lands, it is a pure miss. Yeah. Where this lands, it often lands somewhere I want to be anyway. Yeah. It's just not horror. So like that's what happened all this month. Yes. You know, basically, and the you know, cosmic horror, when it's not scary because it's about the universe, like I still think can be neat.
Oh, it can still absolutely be neat. Like they're fun ideas to kind of roll around. It's just the thing that is presented as horrific to me is, you know, not necessarily. It's not a good reveal. Like it's not a good, you know, final italicized line, you know, by any means. But like the, you know, something like, you know, in terms of cosmic horror, like you look at something like In the Mouth of Madness or In the Mountains of Madness, you know, the Elder Things, like, you know, created humans on accident. Yes. You know, it was a big cosmic horror idea. Yeah. Like I like that quite a bit. Like I think that's a really cool idea that informs a worldview that is interesting for me to dally around. Yeah. You know, not scary. No, it's more engaging in a philosophical way, you know, where, you know, it makes you think about if there is a higher power, it doesn't care about you. It leads more into like absurdity than anything else in the kind of classical sense, not in the haha Monty Python sense of the word. Yeah. And for me, like when this works, like the two kind of watchwords for me to make this work is detail. For me is a cerebral horror. So a lot of this is going to be just thinking about an idea, right? Because it's cerebral, like it is thinking. This is the horror of thinking, right? Like it is just making. So detail is really important to this. Like a small detail that is really well observed and really, really horrific and horrible, and is more horrible the more you think about it, is really, really additive. Yes.
to something like this for me. So this is stuff like, and a lot of this stuff can come across as like Easter egg things, but they work for me in terms of adding to the horror.
Mm-hmm.
So to use a recent example, something we both watched, like to talk about Hereditary,
mm-hmm.
When you start realizing how much the cult had their foot in this family
mm-hmm.
From the beginning, those little details, that is some of the most haunting stuff about that movie to me.
Yeah.
You know, like hearing the footsteps when they come home from the funeral, like someone was there. That is not a body horror. That does not make me feel dread. Mm-hmm. You know, I barely noticed it. Yeah. But the more I think about it, I'm like, man, that is fucking bleak. You know, that contributes to the philosophical core of this that is depressing, that, you know, these people have no control. They're fucked from the start. And it is just invasive. You know, it is a violation.
Messing with your sense of safety is a huge thing on this, I think. Big thing.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is best for this and what it needs is tragedy.
Yeah.
For me, like this works best for me when it is bleak or sad.
Yeah.
You know, I think about like Silent Hill 2, which out of that series, like that is the only one of those games I've gone nuts for. Yeah. Right. Like I like 3, I like Shattered Memories, I liked 1. Mm-hmm. 2 is the only one I think is a great game.
Yes.
The rest of them I think are good games. Mm-hmm. Silent Hill 2 is a great game.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason why the psychological horror of that lands better than any of the other ones, like by like a metric,
there's a reason that they kept chasing that for a decade afterwards. Yeah.
It is a reason why it's held up that way. And a lot of the impact of that is that it's fucking sad.
Mm-hmm.
Pathologic is fucking sad.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is a sad game.
Yeah.
The horror comes with you reckoning with a idea so bleak but as to also be a little bit relatable. Mm-hmm. To you, that act of it, you know, and the more I think about it, the sadder it is.
Yes.
You know, and that is really effective in terms of psychological horror.
Yes.
To me, if you want to not immediately aim for my gut and aim for my brain, that is the way to do it.
Go ahead, sir.
Or I was going to say, and when it misses, right? So like this was my thing with Outlast, and I'm not calling you out for it. Mm-hmm. It's because the line between something that's sad and then also just kind of like so outsized as to be silly is really, really like thin. You know, someone who is just like, this is just comically bleak. Mm-hmm. You know, like I went and watched the Jokester. The amount in the first half of that movie that everyone is shitting on him is fucking hilarious. Like it is so outsized and dumb. Everyone is just beating him up for no reason. Like, hey, idiot. You know, just like beating the crap out of him. And of course he turns into a Joker. You know, like that's how you get Jokers. You just beat people up all the time for no reason. Yep. And the way that articulated was just comical to me. Yeah. It was not sad, even though they wanted it to be sad for me. So that is a really tricky thing to do as well.
It's a super fine line. Yeah.
You know, but when it hits, like that is how you get to my like brain scared.
Yeah. And I think that both of us kind of said the same thing, which is there needs to be an emotional truth to it. It cannot just be, and there are you know certain kinds of like purely cerebral kinds of horror that work for me, but they also play into the sense of a safe space kind of, or not safe space, messing with my sense of sanctuary. You know, a little bit. Two things in particular that I would call some of the best scary moments in games. I think work on that level, which are Silent Hill 1, the elevator that just has the elevator in the hospital. The hospital has always had 3 floors, and you go through, and at one point you get in, and there is a 4th floor button there, and it does not go to anywhere on your map. I don't know where to file that except for, you know, under the, you know, this is aiming for my head and hitting me in my sense of safety. It is playing with my assumptions about how mutable space ought to be. Right. Mm-hmm. The other one in Silent Hill 3, where you get again in the hospital, you get the call from Leonard saying, hey, meet me in room, you know, 308 or whatever. And throughout the entire dungeon, that hallway is always ended at room 306. And then boom, the hallway is longer when it is time to go see him. When you are going off of the map, when you're having these assumptions about what the boundaries of space are, that is extremely effective for me. And that plays very well in a horror game. It plays well in games and things that are interactive, that are about exploration.
Yeah, you can actually feel the space rather than just being told like, hey, actually the hallway's longer now. Boo! I'm Mark Zielinski or whatever. Boo! It's got a 4th floor. Boo! I just being mean. But the it's funny because the thing about that, again, just how objective all this stuff is I always think that stuff's neat. I've never been scared by an extra floor on a building.
No.
Like that activates nothing to me. Like I think it's cool, but I just like, man, you know, the only time that like my version of that hit that a little bit are going down the stairs in Silent Hill 2.
Yeah.
And this just going down and down and down because they pushed it so far, you know, as to be, but it's otherwise it is like tropes are a weird thing in horror because if they're your tropes, do them as much as you want.
Yeah.
Like I will owe it like cults. give me the cult, free my soul. I want to get lost in your rock and roll, like, and drift away. But something like that extra space, the non-Euclidean space thing is just as tropey, and I appreciate it, but it's not my trope.
Right.
It doesn't just always activate my, you know, my arousal centers in a non-horny way. You know, so like figuring out what your tropes are, because it is a genre, like it's genre fiction, it's going to be tropey. Like every piece of horror that I like can basically be broken down into a lot of cliches, even if they subvert them. Yeah. You know, like Hereditary, which I love, is a really great articulation of a possession story, basically. You know, it is not, or, you know, and Midsummer is a folk horror story, a cult folk horror story. It's not that innovative, right, as a thing. It's just those are my tropes. Yeah,
you know, you can talk about it being innovative as an expression of those things, but it is still within the bounds of something.
Still made in the building blocks,
right.
You know, of that stuff. And every once in a while, you get something that reaches outside of that, but it's extremely rare. Yeah. You know, and in games like that also applies. Yeah. You know, so like playing a thing where it's like, oh, the space keeps changing, like that can be very cool to me. Like I like it when, you know, I turn around, you know, when we did I'm Scared, and that did cool stuff with space. And I thought that was like really cool. Yeah. You know,
a game that you enjoyed very much from this year, Dusk, does that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Dusk does amazing stuff with that, and it's great. You know, but it's more cool than scary to me. And just kind of figuring those things out for yourself, and then pursuing media that does those individual tropes well, but whether they're games or movies, is kind of the key to experiencing genre and liking things. We've explained something very basic to a new frontier. Yeah, at this point, the concept of like.
Well, yeah, and also it has to do with your personal experiences as well, and your own particular, for lack of a better word, triggers. You know, for anxiety or fear. For me, you know, I've talked about in the past how I get lost very easily. You know, whether it's in games or in real life, and being lost is a huge, you know, like that is sometimes the most anxious that I get. Is when I feel I'm moored from a path where I don't know what my orientation is in relation to, you know, what I thought it used to be. So like that is playing into something very personal for me when a game intentionally unmoors me, when it intentionally plays with space like that.
Yeah. And all of this stuff, if you want to psychoanalyze us, I'm sure you could take all of those things that we're saying that we really like and follow a trail of breadcrumbs back to some personality trait, right? Like I don't particularly mind getting lost. That's not a thing for me, but like I have a well-noted fear and distrust of communities. You know, I don't like clubs. I don't like people bound by common cause. You know, so of course cults like freak me out. Right. You know, or like I think one of the reasons why cosmicism stuff resonates really strongly with me is because I'm not optimistic. In general, like things that suggest a bleak future, or that there's just, you know, like the ending of the movie Mist, right? Like things that do suggest like, no, this is actually fucking hopeless, like resonate with me because that is a fear of mine. So like when games do things like that, like this is actually just as absolutely fucking bleak as it can be. That works for me because, you know, that's how I feel about things a lot of the time. You know, so spookiness. Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. I think that we've hit all the angles, and we've hit a lot of the examples that I came into this with. I think that you know, broadly, the emotional truth is what's most important for me out of a lot of this.
It's emotional. You want an emotional truth when you are doing kind of a psychological horror kind of thing in games, for sure. And then when it is, you're going for a gut horror, I think that is best when it's tied into mechanics. Somebody watching a cutscene of somebody doing something that would provide a gut horror in a game does not work. Right. Definitely for me. I think that is needs to be tied into my scarcity as, you know, as an avatar.
You know, compare and contrast, again, just the opening of Silent Hill, because we only talk about 4 games on this network. Harry walking down the alleyway and finding the crucified body. Much more effective because you are doing it yourself as compared to like just if that was just part of the opening and the play started in the diner when you woke up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes for all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like if when you walk into a room in Doom 3 and then we saw a cutscene of the Marine pick up the shotgun, look over his shoulder and see a monster crawling out of a vent and then control resumed, it would fuck the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's a big reason why Alan Wake sucks so bad as a horror game, because the camera switches to a cinematic angle to show you things popping out every single time. Right. You are not in control when scary things happen in Alan Wake, because it is an abject failure as a horror game. Yeah. Like, it is not scary. There's some low level concepts that are a little bit scary in it. Yeah. But it is, I think that like ultimately on revisit, like I think that, aimed for the first half, totally failed. I had a couple of things aiming at the second half, totally failed. When second half, I mean body horror. Yeah. I don't know where in my mind I divided these into halves. And then aimed really hard for the first half and landed among some neat ideas that don't add up to anything, in a way that is vastly disappointing. Yeah. Really easy to fail at horror games. Like it is a genre that like we both really like, but like, boy, is it fraud. Yeah.
Batting average is not great. And that's why I love, that's why I love playing them. That's why I love occasionally writing about them. Why I love streaming them, is because, oftentimes there are extremely good ideas that are mixed in with not great stuff.
Yeah. Really poor execution. It's like this genre for poor execution.
Yes.
And they're a huge niche.
Well, of course.
As a thing, like they're not, it's not a blockbuster genre. So we're not seeing a whole lot of that.
Nope.
So, hopefully next year we'll do some scary things. I need an emergency scare package, and it can be either form of horror.
Right.
I just want it to be something that actually makes me feel something, and not, some things that are interesting and good to talk about.
Yeah. I may lobby for Cat Lady early in the year.
I'm down. Like I'm down for some Cat Lady.
Yeah.
So moving on to, so again, thank you to everybody for your questions. The way that you ask questions is to be a patron. If you go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv, you can submit a question. We put out the call every month.
Yes.
The way, if we didn't get to your questions, we will. If we have done makeup episodes before. If we have to do that, we might need to do a topics episode pretty soon.
Yeah. At least before the end of the year.
Yeah. So we'll do another just Patreon bonus episode that's just topics.
Yes.
Just talking about that. Moving on to your responses to October's non-scary games month.
So I'll get us started here. Riley says via contact, I really enjoyed Call of Cthulhu. Exploring the island, slowly gathering and compiling evidence, coming up with hypotheses, having some assumptions proven wrong, and reaching conclusions in my head all felt great. These responses are about Call of Cthulhu 2018, by the way. But as much as I love the endings, I couldn't help but be disappointed that there was never any point in the game where my gathering of evidence really mattered. There was no chapter where I had to compile all of the evidence that I had, conclude that the cult is hanging out in the whalery and head there. I wouldn't even want it to be that game critical. If you fail, you could have a vision of a supporting character meeting a grisly fate that solves it and allows you to progress. But in a game about being a PI, solving a Lovecraftian mystery, it's a shame that you don't do that much in the way of practice. That you don't do much of that in practice, rather. Also, I love the cult tying the star spawn in with the biblical Leviathan. They even have Bibles with that section in their cave. Given their understanding, of course, that's what they would conclude that this whale-eating monster is. And while our more scientific approach, that this is a star spawn of Cthulhu, may be more accurate, neither really gives us a true understanding of quite what it is or why it does things. People tying mythos creatures into existing myths, or how orthodox religion and science both try but ultimately are unable to come to accurate conclusions on these eldritch mysteries, are elements that I love in Lovecraftian fiction.
Yeah, good observation.
Yeah,
that is a big part of not just what happens in Lovecraftian fiction, but also what Lovecraft did with his fiction. Yeah. So when he would list his like eldritch tomes and stuff, he would put real books in there.
Yes.
Or he would say like, the beginning of Call of Cthulhu starts with this earthquake or this like flood or earthquake, I can't remember, that is real, that everyone reported having dreams about. Like that actually happened. Like if you were reading that story at the time, that was in the newspapers, and he's saying, but also this stuff happened.
Yeah. That's an effective thing. People talk derisively about the footnotes in House of Leaves. However, there are, the equal parts real citations and fake ones that, lead more into the kind of implausibility or potential plausibility of what's going on. Yep.
And in terms of the first half of this, like it's, I agree. Like that game is cool. Like one of the, me coming to peace with this game, like with this replay, is learning it's not that game. It's a walking sim that tells you a story that has some of the cadence of a detective game.
Yeah.
But you don't actually spend very much time doing it.
Yeah. Yep. I would have preferred that game, but meeting this game on its terms. It's probably
which is hard to do sometimes, because I expected it to be a lot more investigative, especially since it's the official role-playing game tied into, and that is the primary verb of the role-playing game. It's
really weird that Life is Strange has that beat that Riley wants, but this game doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, that is really strange. It's even strange that's it. Where that falls in Life is Strange too. Like it's I like that part a lot, but it is explicitly gamey in a way that like not very much is done. 2 chapters after like walking around collecting beer bottles, which is explicitly gamey in the worst way.
Right.
Paul says via contact, continuing about Call of Cthulhu. As luck would have it, I picked up a copy of this game a few weeks before he covered it on WAF, and while I enjoyed its clearly low budget jankiness, it fell prey to the same problem I have with many Lovecraft inspired games. It gets into the cosmic horror stuff way too fast. What I really enjoy about Lovecraft is the slow, creeping dread and the gradual buildup of the protagonists losing their mind as they become exposed to horror after horror after horror. In short, I felt the game blasted its load too quickly. Blasted. Yep. A few more chapters, like the one where you first arrive in Darkwater Island, would have been wonderful. Having said that, all the stuff with the Dimensional Shambler was really well done, and I'm an abject coward, so it made me crap my pants on more than one occasion. So the game deserves credit for that. Looking forward to eventually covering Vampire, which is another game that is definitely worth around £15 secondhand.
At least.
I think Vampire is a better game. Than Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
£16 or quids or whatever. I agree that I could have used more build-up.
Yeah.
As well. I mean, the house is also build up like Darkwater, and then when you get to the house, that's also build up. Like it goes for a little while, but then as soon as you get to the house, you're in the caves.
Yes.
After that, so it goes pretty quick.
Yeah. I'm trying to like in my head contrast that with Dark Corners of the Earth. I feel I think that is a slow burn. At least
it's way slower.
Yeah.
Than this. Like it's the issue with that is that like this is a more gradual game in general, and covers less ground.
Yeah.
Than that. Dark Corners, you spend a lot more time at kind of an even level of dread, quite a bit. But then once it turns into the shooter game, it's that from throughout. Like, it's not like there's nothing scary that happens after that, but it is, it is a real A-side, B-side game.
Yeah. No. Let's see here. Eli says via Lexington, Call of Cthulhu is a game that I'm very comfortable calling my trash, and my trash is in quotes. I'm not sure there's a moment the game could be called beautiful, and the voice acting, while good, has that uncanny Hitman quality where none of the characters sound like they're actually in their current situation or setting. Sometimes characters will have dialogue that makes it seem like they didn't hear the last thing you said. The reconstruction mechanic doesn't make any sense, especially once other characters start using it, and the game's shooting segment plays like that scene from the Doom movie looks, only less badass. Any section with gameplay that can give you a fail state feels stilted and poorly thought out. But I loved it. I loved putting myself in the shoes of a hard-nosed, hard-drinking private eye on a hunt for the truth. I loved exploring a strange island and interrogating its weirdos. I loved the game asking questions like, do you read the Book of Forbidden Knowledge? Knowing that the answer should always be no, and always knowing that I would say yes. I thoroughly enjoyed this game's take on sanity. Instead of a bar that goes down in certain situations, going back up once you find a consumable or get away from the scary monster, opening that volume of the Malleus Monstrorum has long-lasting consequences. As Pierce gets closer and closer to knowing the truth, the damage done to his perception of reality cannot be undone. I rarely have any desire to replay games, with an emphasis on narrative-based choice, but I look forward to coming back to this rough gem to see what might happen if I don't stick my nose in every book about night gaunts and shoggoths, or what happens if I don't willingly decide to help summon Cthulhu.
Yeah, you get a different ending.
Yeah.
It's actually a big bummer, the game, but it does, you can kind of pretend on your way there.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to make a difference. And it is, obviously, my trash, again, kind of dovetailing the conversation we had, like, these are my tropes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I read this Book of Forbidden Knowledge? Forbidden Knowledge is one of my tropes.
Yeah.
Like, I just think that's cool and scary as an idea. Even though, like, I think I mentioned this on a show, like, I've been rereading Lovecraft, and, like, it's crazy how many people have read the Necronomicon and no one goes crazy from reading it.
Uh-huh.
Like, it doesn't make you crazy.
Nope.
It does, that is a weird thing. I think that, like, kind of became conflated with The King in Yellow as, like, a Lovecraftian tome.
Yeah.
It's probably where the tabletop game got that and then popularized that as part of the trope, because it was never part of the fiction.
Right.
Like, it's really, really strange, and I haven't seen that observed, but, like, everyone has read it before they go and do their things, So, but yeah, I'm largely agree.
Yeah.
Moving on to responses about Silent Hill's Shattered Memories.
This is
Adam says,
Adam says,
I was getting Torment. I had Torment on Switch, so I thought maybe he had told me his name was Adon enough times that summoned him into being. Viva Contact. I loved Shattered Memories when it came out and replayed it several times in the space of a month or so. I really enjoyed trying to play these systems to see how many of the small changes the game would make. The game being so short and digestible made me want to revisit it again and again. One of my replays, I invited one of my roommates to sit and play with me. He was a troubled dude with a good heart and big daddy issues. His father passed away during his formative years, leaving a long shadow. He very clearly had never been able to truly get over his loss. I felt for him, and as we played the entire game in a single sitting, I hoped that it would show him how his inability to let go was poisoning him. The game didn't touch him, and he never changed. Not surprising, but I still do hold out hope that stories can touch us and change us for the better. I like to think that it helped me develop my own empathy and empathize with him a little bit more.
Yeah. I can't imagine a game will live up to the actual trauma.
No, I don't know that, you run into some, like, I'm not saying Adam is doing this, but you run into, like, giving the Pope an Undertale kind of situation when I think that you can, like, games can be very important, but there is this weird, I think that it is an exaggerated importance.
Yeah.
The Games for Change category of the Game Awards. And I'm like, for change.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a big thing
to
ask. And on a personal level like that, like, I find that when media really affects me and changes my worldview or it really helps me, I never expect it. There's no intentionality on my end, and there could not be any intentionality on anyone else's end. It's more that it's what I happened to run into that when I was ready.
Yeah.
To make that change just through the cosmic locus of control, like the weather that is emotions that I have absolutely no dominion over. We're just ready to break.
Yeah.
Storm will be done when it's done.
Yep.
Yeah.
James says via contact, when I played Shattered Memories back in college, I received the pervert ending and analysis, and I didn't think much of it. It's just a video game, right? Well, 9 years later, I started seeing a therapist about my sex addiction. I've been going to therapy for 4 months now, and while I haven't done any puzzles in our sessions, I think it has helped a lot. This could just be a coincidence, but maybe Butterfield is more afraid of conflict than he realizes. I rewatched Shattered Memories on YouTube for the show, and the scenes where Harry and Dahlia reminded me of the pseudo relationships my teammates and I had with barflies and escorts during a 2-year period of living in hotels while working abroad. Like the way Dahlia was annoyed at Harry for not recognizing her, reminded me of a time a woman claimed to have dated me for a week 5 months from then, and I had no recollection of her at all. She then described a plausible sounding but non-specific week of us meeting at the hotel bar. To this day, I wonder if I was in such a fugue state that I couldn't recall so much of my life, or that I was so interchangeable that I was mistaken for another person. Luckily, I changed jobs about a year ago, and I'm no longer part of the work hard, play hard culture. This episode accidentally took me back to an uncomfortable period of my life, and I wonder if one of the developers for this game had a similar period of inebriation-based relationships or knew someone who did.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe they did. Because that is a very specific thing. Like, because I am the lame-oyed milquetoast that I am, like, when that kind of thing happens, it does feel like it's it's engaging in tropes, like that kind of thing. Like, oh, it's the Bill Brasky bar guys, going down to the bar and like hitting on people, and then every once in a while, a big show's like, no, that's a real thing. Like it happens. Yeah. Jeremy will talk about entertaining clients or whatever sometimes, and it just being like sometimes it's like that.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just like, oh, that's just so far from my experience. But yeah, people really do have it.
Yeah.
So, and congratulations on getting therapy.
Yeah.
Sincerely, I know that sounds like a flip thing, but no,
it's a huge step. And also thank you for feeling comfortable sharing this detail.
Yeah. Good on you. Yeah. And I will beat the shit out of anyone who says I'm afraid of confrontation. I will go and I'll yell in their face. I will tell them what I think about them. We will break up.
I will scream so loud it makes the news.
Yeah, it will make the heavens cry. So moving on to responses about the Resident Evil 7 DLC. Thomas says via contact, the first part will be a bit long, but I wanted to thank the entire Duckfeed team. 13 months ago, my mom almost died due to a medical mix-up, and I've spent the last year driving over the state of Texas to help my dad keep an eye on her. She's finally about to get off of assisted living, but in that time, I've downloaded and listened to a large amount of Watch Out for Fireballs. Then in March, I became a patron and was subjected to The Fire Hose. Since then, I bought every bundle and listened to everything, not just Watch Out for Fireballs, but almost all of the backlog of all the shows, even somehow Monster My Podcast and even Guppy. I am that weirdo. Thanks for keeping me entertained during all this. Thanks, Thomas. We don't often read that kind of feedback, but thanks for sharing again. And I'm glad things that your mother's getting out of assisted living and everything. Yes. Yeah, that's good. Happy to help. Thomas continues. Oh, and Guppy. Good on you. I love you, weirdos. Thomas continues. Anyway, after listening to the RE7 DLC episode, I finally bit the bullet and bought the whole thing to play. I had been hoping for PS or PC VR, but it's October, and I thought, what the hell? I fired it up on my TV while my girlfriend was reading, and eventually she started getting into it once Mia showed up. When I took her down and Jack showed up, she jumped and said, I'm out. Little did I know she was still keeping an eye on it from the other room. And when Jack pulled out the knife to force feed Ethan, I heard a scream and then a door shut. Thanks for finally forcing me to play this game and terrifying her.
That's very good. I like that.
Super cute.
Yeah. You gotta eat his supper.
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta learn about supper someday.
And then
what if like whenever you were hungry, you go to a restaurant and it was like 22% off, but they force fed it to you. Like you could have whatever you want, but it had to be Jack coming out and like knifing into your mouth.
Do you have to sit in a high chair?
Yes, but an adult one, proportioned for an adult.
Of course. I'm not talking about like, some kind of, I'm not talking about a comical situation.
No. This is dead serious. No. So you can order whatever you want. You go into the restaurant, you order, then they strap you into an adult high chair, and your bill is 22% off. But Jack comes out and is like, "Time to eat your supper. You wasted away," and then just like takes a knife and just starts jamming your burger and fries or whatever into your mouth.
No amount of money is worth that, Gary.
No amount. What if you were refunded, like you got the cost of a burger for eating a burger?
No, it would still
plus
be like
22%.
Yeah, it would still like the fanciest burger I can conceive of. Like I don't know, like the $20 is still burger? What's that?
The Ogliarch burger?
The oligarch burger? Yeah.
Yeah. The gold leaf Ogliarch burger.
Right. Yeah. No, it's no. I would not. Not worth it to me to be trapped. That would actually like legit put me into a panic attack to be strapped into a chair.
I think that hopefully I will die without ever being force fed something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to, I talk about this a lot and it's a big wish, but I'd like to die without ever being hogtied. I'd really like to die without
don't speak that into the world. You're going to make it happen. It's kind of like if you said, "Oh, I'm real afraid of I'm real afraid of red doors." All of a sudden, like your Twitter is going to be filled with pictures of red doors. You have just ensured. Okay,
it's just a picture of me not hogtied.
Okay,
it's the secret.
Just in various poses, not hogtied. Yeah,
just no hogtied.
Like maybe like looking at somebody who's hogtied and like just like you're smiling and laughing and there's a little speech bubble that says that happy that's not me.
Yeah, exactly. That's my vision board. It's the secret. Try not to get hogtied. I'm gonna add force feeding to it, like just me eating a sandwich normally.
Yeah,
a
person trying to force feed you but failing.
Yeah. They keep falling on their face.
Yeah.
Maybe their shoelaces are tied together by a helpful friend.
Yeah, or by a goose.
Yeah. By a helpful goose. Pocket is protecting me. The pocket protector is logged on.
I have no idea where we go from there.
Eli
says via Kentucky. Down by where I used to live. Resident Evil 7's bedroom DLC may be my favorite piece of horror gaming. As an amateur horror enthusiast, the most common tricks of the genre work wonders on me. And while some of my favorite games ever fall into the genre, I'm not sure I can say I enjoy the feeling of terror when a monster starts chasing me, or the sudden increase in my heart rate that comes with a jump scare. In general, I find enjoyment in escape room scenarios in video games, so this was the first DLC that I started after finishing RE7's main game. I was extremely confused after I had to force open a drawer, which turned out to be empty. However, once Marguerite began her return, I'd hastily put all the room's items back into their proper place, but the grin on my face as she searched the room and went the grin on my face as she searched the room went from ear to ear until she and I realized at the exact same second the broken drawer. Needless to say, my stomach dropped. Bedroom indulges in a type of fear I feel like few, if any, video games do. The fear of your parents, and specifically trying to pull the wool over their eyes. I've never found a sludge monster in my basement, and I've never accidentally been involved in a ritual that would summon a horrifying creature from another dimension. I have, however, lied to my mom and experienced the anxiety that comes from that. Turns out that the anxiety goes up even further when my mom is now none other than Marguerite Baker.
Yeah,
that's a good. That is a good comparison. I did not make that. You know, the terror of deceiving somebody in authority, parental figure, and not knowing whether you're going to get caught. And my experience is they always knew.
Yeah. Kids are really bad liars.
Yes.
You get a kid that's a good liar, like get rid of it.
Yeah. No. So send to some kind of camp. You know,
yep. Truth camp.
Yep, truth camp.
Hashtag truth camp. That is, I think, is also by far the strongest of those DLCs.
100%.
And I would play again. I would play a game that is like, here's 9 of these.
Yes,
that'd be so good.
Yeah, when you think about it, mom is the ultimate cop.
Mom is a cop. Parents are cops. The idea of like that being because I also like escape rooms and search for them in video game form, and so many of them are shit. It is this weird shovelware genre on iOS.
Yeah.
And so few of them actually use 3D space in a way that like escape rooms do. Like a lot of them have got similar to a 999 approach where there's one kind of puzzle in the room. It's not an intricate series of puzzles that lead to one another. Where like, you know, if you play a video game escape room, like you do the one puzzle and it takes you into the next room for the one puzzle. And they never relate to each other. It's a real bummer.
Yeah.
So if you know, I would be interested in more stuff like this that actually is a more literal translation of an escape room than this.
Yeah, and they did it at the right time too. Like it feels like when Bedroom came out, escape rooms were kind of at their
it was the big
when they first made their big break kind of deal.
Yeah. You know, it's a bummer that like if you like that kind of stuff, you can play like The Room on iOS, which is cool, but it's very different. Or like something, you know, again, really cool, like, you know, Hidden My Game by Mom, which is wonderful, but doesn't have the rhythms of an escape room.
Right.
You know, moving on to responses about Alan Wake. Friend of the show, Alessio says, good morning, afternoon, and evening to fellow finders of the weird and paranormal. I'm eager to hear your coverage of Alan Wake and wanted to write in with an inquiry. If you don't end up covering this ground on the episode proper, what are your thoughts on Remedy's trademark, overwritten pulp approach to its games? I find it endearing, but I've also grown up with the studio since playing the original Max Payne 15 or 16 years ago. Or when I was 15 or 16 years old. As somebody who is trying to write more and more, I'd love to hear both your takes on the style. If you do end up discussing that aspect of Remedy's work, here's an alternate question for you. Given Remedy's track record for smashing genres, influences, and archetypes together, do you find their specific level of aping is a proper shtick, or is Sam Lake's mashup writing a symptom of a lack of maturity in the craft? Can a Frankenstein's monster of taste-defining association points act as substance, or will it always ring as a shallow reference reverence? Thank you both very much. P.S. And I'm sure I'm not the only one to mention this. Play Control. It is wonderful. First game I've 100%ed it in a long time. I would like to play Control, but I'm going to put out a blanket warning to the universe that it's teetering on the Nier Automata. Every time you tell me to play this, I'm going to wait another year because I need you to leave me alone about it. Because I don't have time. I know about it. I know about video games. You know, like I know. I will. Don't make this like work. Like, don't turn this into something that like I have to do for you.
Mm-hmm. So,
unless you want to patronize it, and then totally turn it into something I have to do for you.
Yeah.
So don't do that. Do that through the proper channels.
Yeah, there is an avenue. But we are not criticizing you, Alessio, for making a heartfelt recommendation. Yeah. So in answering the first part, having not played Control or Quantum Break, I feel like I can only respond to Max Payne and Alan Wake. And, the overwritten pulp approach to it, I think it, we talk about this in the episode, but it just depends on how present it is. It depends on how much it hits you with it. It works for me in Max Payne in a way that it does not work in Alan Wake, because you are never removed from Alan Wake's voice. Yeah.
And it's a more annoying voice.
Just
like part of it is just, it's worse. Part of it also is, I think that like Pulp Detective is more of a wider genre, and one that I think is more fun than like tortured writer dealing with what fiction can mean.
Right.
Which is just an annoying trope in general to me. And then also just being in that particular character's head the whole time was really unpleasant.
Yeah.
So generally agree, and I think it works better in Max Payne. And then in terms of like whether you can make really, really good work that is genre mashup stuff like that, I think absolutely you can.
Yeah.
I think Max Payne is great. Like, I love Max Payne. I think that's actually really clever, and like a really great work of that. Whether it is, it can act as substance. Getting into a like art versus entertainment debate on it is not something that like I, don't feel like going into.
Yeah.
But I do think you can do good stuff.
I forget if you said this. Synthesis. I forget if you said this on the show or if this was somebody else, but in talking about film and talking about movies, the idea that something needs to be challenging to be worthwhile is a real blind alley when it comes to when it comes to like any kind of media or fiction, etc. Like, it doesn't have to be, new in order to be worthwhile. Like, it can just be fun. It just has to be, honest and realistic about where it's aiming for, and it has to hit what it's aiming for. It can't point at the fences and then bunt accidentally or whatever, Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, I think I talked about that in terms of ambiguous endings.
Yeah.
A little bit, and that it sounds like something I would say. I don't remember specifically saying that, but I went on a similar thing about, this has to be a puzzle box at the end where you don't know what it is for it to be good. And I think that's some real 201 level media analysis. Yeah. Like that's some teenage atheist stuff.
Yeah. It disqualifies a bunch of stuff. And that to me is not like a satisfying approach to being a consumer of fiction.
Well, Will said this again, just talking about Will, he talked about something with, something he had talked about, some piece of media where it's like people will accept snark or hatred of something, but dismissal is really hard to swallow. Yeah. And I think that's really true, but also like dismissal is probably the least interesting thing you can do to a piece of work. Like, I think that is, an approach that is like, and I say that and I engage in it. There are things I just dismiss, right? I'm just not going to play those rabbit games. Like, those aren't worth my time. Yeah. But dismissal is not criticism.
Right.
Dismissal is not commentary. Dismissal is not interesting. It's not worth reading.
Yeah.
So for Days of Future cast, we're covering the most recent X-Men movie recently or soon. And I was reading reviews of it, and it's not a great movie. There are things that are bad to say about it, but so many reviews wasted so many words just dismissing it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, stop wasting my fucking time with that. Like, this is not interesting to read, and you're not saying anything.
Yeah, it kind of seems like you're saying you're telling on yourself a little bit.
Yeah. And you're trying to make a broad point about what art is worth considering, rather than just doing your job, which is to consider the art in front of you.
Yeah.
For me to read.
Yeah.
And that's something that, one of the things I like about our show, like something, not to pat ourselves too hard on the back, but one of the reasons why I think that working on the show, what we do is good, is that like, we don't do that. We don't like everything.
Yeah.
But I don't dismiss stuff.
Yeah.
I've
got some Bonfire Side Chat reviews that would disagree.
But I'm not like, I'm not dismissing it.
I know.
Like it's, they say that like, you can tell me that I'm wrong, about Dark Souls 3 or Sekiro or whatever, and disagree with me, but I'm not dismissing it.
Yeah.
I'm taking it on its terms, and I'm trying to engage with it. I'm saying substantive things about it. I'm not saying, well, this is actually just dumb and doesn't count.
Yeah.
Something
something else about dismissal here is that when it happens either in a published piece or as part of a discussion, either in the discourse or etc., if you just dismiss something, that can also be a manifestation of stop talking about this. Please talk about what I want to talk about.
That totally.
Yeah.
That is 100%. And I'm not saying I never do that, right? Would certainly never say that. So if maybe I am a hypocrite, but it's something I endeavor not to do. Right. And I try to be just personhood tip. And something I try to do is be aware when you are motivated by the fact that people are not talking about the thing you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Right now, and it's all stuff I like, but I'm struggling because my mute filters are not working for Disco Elysium, which is a game I really want to play and I'm pretty sure I'll love. And I don't want to hear about it right now because I can't play it. I'm not going to play it yet. I don't have time. I don't want it spoiled for me. I want to go in fresh. And I was exaggerating, and I'm getting annoyed when it pops up on my timeline. And I was trying to interrogate, and it's is this just the opportunity cost, or this is just something I don't want to talk about? I don't like it. And I know I do that. But I try not to.
No, you just if it's internal, that's fine. That's not a
yeah. That's different. I'm sure I do it even just in general.
Yeah,
but it's a big thing. As somebody now who is we've had the Slack for a few years, and not anyone in specifically. And by and large, it is a really positive place. But that is a pernicious behavior that I see a lot. Is someone just being I don't want to talk about this. I'm changing the subject to something else. It's well, other people are talking about that. Maybe don't do that.
Yeah.
Maybe watch yourself doing that in online spaces.
Yeah.
So,
or in person.
Yeah, exactly. It's not great in person either. Right. Just changing the subject because you want to talk about something else is lousy.
Yeah.
So the art of changing the subject is difficult.
Yes. Jake writes via contact. This is now the second game that I've played along with the show, the first one being Halo ODST. And like with ODST, I found coming back to Alan Wake disappointing. The thing that stood out to me replaying it was how much the game relies on horror pop culture references for its flavor. I'm all in favor of homages and whatnot, but for some reason, every time Alan Wake makes a reference, they have to call out what they are referencing. The frequency with which the game did this led to it feeling like it didn't have an identity of its own, that it was just borrowing from better horror properties instead of creating its own unique world or story. This, coupled with what I found to be tensionless survival horror mechanics, made Alan Wake feel like an entry point for young gamers. fit possibly for people who are recovering from surgery. No, made it feel like an entry point for young gamers to get into survival horror while not actually standing with the other titans of the genre. Thanks again, guys, for all your hard work and content. Can't wait to hear the app I'll be playing along with Human Revolution, which I'm hoping is a way better experience than ODST and Alan Wake was.
I found that it stood up pretty well.
Cool.
I still love Human Revolution.
Yeah.
Don't compare it to Deus Ex.
Well,
so as long as you're not comparing it to Deus Ex 1, it's still super good. Yeah, I agree. The mashups, and there's something about references when they call them out. I know this is not a totally apt example, but just been on my mind because I think I'm going to pull it up from my alt list and rewatch it. Is Cabin in the Woods.
Oh yeah.
Which is a movie I really like. But if the character said hey, this this thing is exactly like the Tormentium dodecahedron or whatever from Hellraiser, it would suck. I just need to have the pleasure of seeing, the Malleus Configuratorum,
yes,
or whatever it's called, and a Lament configuration. Just get to see that, and then just be like, oh yeah, I do. Then it doesn't feel like stealing valor.
Yeah, no, agreed. So. Just have the confidence that have the confidence to make the reference and hope that other people will get it, or that it will feel like enough of a part of the game or the product that it won't stick out. Leave it as an Easter egg. It's fine. That is when references work best.
Me too. I think so too.
Yeah,
agreed. Weird Autumn says via contact, I want to talk about a small weird element of Alan Wake that I appreciate. The weapon selection. Your arsenal is extremely limited compared to almost any other shooter, but it plays into my weird habits. I never want to use either a practical or efficient or massively oversized and turbo-lethal gun in a game. If I'm going to be shooting, I want what Alan Wake gives me, which is some cowboy shit. The selection of revolver and shotguns and lever action rifles that Alan Wake has is exactly what I would gravitate towards anyway, which is a me thing, but it's also a good aesthetic and thematic fit. It would be kind of weird to see Alan running around in his ratty tweed jacket, packing an assault rifle, and the largely archaic single-shot weapons reinforce the tension of the core gameplay loop by making every shot count. They also contribute to the combat feeling repetitive by the end, but I kind of appreciate the rejection of good shooter design in favor of something more tonally grounded. It's part of what makes Alan Wake such a weirdly endearing, memorable, and flawed game. American Nightmare has a more standard selection of weapons, of course, but that game is pointedly more heightened and arcadey and plays into the TV show theming, so, fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, this works and stuff. I think that there's a thousand reasons the combat in Alan Wake is subpar to me. If you had just increased the weapons, it wouldn't help if I'm still fighting the same three things.
Yeah.
So yes, it fits the setting. I agree. And that's good. Yes, I think that more weapons would be silly. Agreed. But I think that it's just, it's almost like if you fix other parts of the combat, this would have to change too. As is the perfect choice for a system that I think is not very good.
Yeah.
Maybe is a good way to put it. But I do think is that, there's value in putting out a perfect choice, even if it is in service of something not that great. It can still be a perfect choice.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Weird Autumn and I have similar instincts. I generally go with the cowboy ass shit too. Fallout New Vegas for me, I pretty much will always go with basically all revolvers for my build. All of my hotkeys will be different revolvers that I have that I will cycle through. Yeah, I
do a lot of pistol style weapons in video games as well.
Yeah,
basically every 0451. Every game that I can choose, Alpha Protocol, everything I can choose, I do a pistol?
Yeah.
Pistol, and then sometimes a pistol and a long arm.
Yeah.
A sniper rifle or a rifle, everything like that. When's the last time you used an Uzi in a game? I think it might be my least favorite weapon class.
They suck
in games. Yeah, Uzis just suck.
Yeah.
They all suck because they kill people in real life, but in games also Uzis suck.
Yeah. Not good weapons.
Not good weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam says via contact, I'm really excited to hear your take on Alan Wake.
Please don't be Sam Lake. Please don't be Sam Lake.
I don't think it was. That would have been very that would have been remarkable. I'm really excited to hear your take on Alan Wake, as it's a game that's important to me. When I first started dating my current partner, she was dismissive of video games and wasn't that interested in trying one out. However, this was when Alan Wake had just come out, and since I'm a massive fan of Stephen King and spooky forests, I was playing it religiously, first to experience it and then to go back and find all of the pages. As a result, she saw some of the game and by chance was drawn into the visual aesthetic and the focus on storytelling. Long story short, she asked me if she could try playing it for herself, and in doing so, showed what I think elevates this game above a lot of its peers. Aside from a 10-minute session on the first stretch of road where I taught her how dual stick controls worked, the game introduces its systems slowly and with care, but still makes the player feel in danger. The first challenge is basically just flee the enemy in a straight line, but it makes a new player feel like they've got mastery of dual stick movement that they just practiced on the road, for example. This meant that my partner was able to sail through the tutorial area, coming out with a strong knowledge of how the game played, as well as feeling like she'd accomplished something cool. She ended up beating the game in a handful of evenings, and I knew it was something special for her when I came home to find her playing it without me. She's been interested in how games tell stories ever since, which reached a high point where we sat down for a weekend to play Bloodborne together. Maybe this would have happened with another game, but it happened with Alan Wake. I love the game anyway, but seeing how smoothly it introduced a new player to video games makes it hold a special place in my memories.
Yeah, it was something. It's very easy for us, and I think this is true for other people who played a lot of video games to skip tutorializing, or resent tutorializing. I know I do it, and I try. I have to try to keep in mind, it's not for me. Like the section of Half-Life where I do the obstacle course, it's not for me. You know, I know how to do this. Like, I don't need it. But, you know, there is quality and craft and care that goes into those parts of games too that is like worth recognizing. Yeah. It's just largely invisible to me.
Yeah. It's invisible unless it is spectacular. See,
unless it's Mega Man X.
Yeah, precisely. The other part of this, you know, aside from tutorializing, that I think is salient is theming matters, especially if somebody is skeptical of, you know, a large swath of things. The fact that this just looked and felt like something that she would be interested in, like something they would be interested in, was worthwhile. You know, like it made a difference.
Theming is the most important thing for getting somebody into something. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like, I don't know if this is, you know, true in every single case, but I think in general, you will never get someone into something by saying it's good. Right. Like, quality is not the metric by which interest is generated.
Because the best, deepest, most satisfying game in the world could be Colonel Dipshit's Fart Party. And like, you know, not a lot of people are going to, you know, take a bite out of that, you know, without being forced to.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, you know, this happens a lot. You know, we talk about like recommendations being poison, right? And part of that is, you know, that is wrapped up in a lot of things. Part of it is our specific, you know, like we play a lot of games for work, so we don't have tons of time for it. Part of it is just like, you know, the cadence of an imposition. Like, you have to do this. I'm giving you an assignment. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of implications in there. There's part of it that is, you know, the weird guilt that's wrapped up in it. Like, oh, this person expects me to do this.
Do I owe this to you now? Yeah.
Yes. You know, there's lots of reasons why. But part of it is because a lot of times it's just based on, hey, this is, you know, it doesn't tell you enough about the thing. Yeah. You know, like, oh, you know, you got to watch this. It's really good. It's like, well, you know what? Like, you know, I will die without seeing every really good thing. You know, I will watch other really good things instead. Yeah. You know, and that is an ironclad bulletproof response to that. But if you say like, hey, this is in your wheelhouse because of X, Y, and Z. Like, this does, you know, this and this and this. Like, oh, well, suddenly, you know, I'm down. Like, that is much more interesting. You know, something I think about, like a real fateful night for me was me playing Dragon Age 2 after being liking Dragon Age 1 but being pretty lukewarm. And it literally just came from, and the game had really bad reviews. Like, you know, that game is not really well thought of. Not really bad reviews. It's like, I'll say, you know, B's, but was not very well thought of. And me just being like, I just really want to play some dark fantasy. Yep. Like, give me some dark fantasy. I want to like wear black leather and go in mines and hit stuff with a sword. That was the end of it, you know, and that had more to do with its quality or anything like that. And then when, you know, the third one came around and it's like, hey, in this game, you get to be a messiah and, you know, revolutionize this thing, like, less interesting to me. Like, also it turned out to be not to be a good game, but also just like wasn't in the mood for it. Didn't sound good at the time. You know, that's like such a big factor. Like, it's so mercurial. Yeah. I just say like it plays with your appetite, I think, more than the actual substance of the game. Yeah. You know, like you can know that like drinking this like really good smoothie or going to this very fancy restaurant that has really good food is the best thing for you. But cravings don't work that way. No. You know, cravings are different. So like if somebody likes Spooky Forest and stuff, you can get them into Alan Wake. You don't necessarily have to be like, hey, this is the best game in the world with this kind of thing. Like, no, recommendations are interesting. Yes. Rounding us out finally here with John. John says, I like the episodic structure of Alan Wake. There are distinct areas that feel different, even though it's just normal game zones. You know, ice, lava, water zones. Even though the whole town has a specific feel overall, each episode feels very different from each other. It makes everything feel connected. Well, except the last vehicle zone in episode 6. I could do without any of that, and it didn't feel like it added to the game. In general, I liked the variety of objects being poltergeisted around the combat arena, even if it didn't mean any difference in gameplay. They're usually interesting. The boss fights of those objects were great. Seeing a crane or bulldozer bearing down on you was incredible. Unfortunately, I had a mate's brother die to a harvester accident, so that fight was a bit full on. The Taken could have used more variety, and those boss fights were just the basic versions with more health. I liked all the tension that this game brought. While not being scary, I found myself on the edge of my seat, focusing intently as any turn around a corner could lead to an epic battle. The slow motion during ambushes made you feel badass, escaping from certain death. The horde mode on the Old Gods stage was a clever and ludicrous use of lighting. I mean, who has ever had a stage set up like that in the middle of a paddock? The licensed music makes the game feel more like a movie. I love this game. Thanks for covering it. Also, I just finished the next game in the Remedy-averse, Control, also known as Now You Get to Be the Poltergeist. Can't wait for you guys to cover this as well.
But one more year up on the board.
Yep. just joking with you, John. Wait, Thresher, a harvester accident. He's
sorry. Yeah, I'm very sorry to hear that, especially something that happened to your friend. So this is just something weird that I take for granted. I forget that not everybody knows somebody who has been injured or killed in a farm equipment accident. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a thing that happens around where I grew up, and I forget that's a thing. So
yeah, I don't know anybody who has gotten killed from a farm accident.
Yeah, no, I know like there was a family friend whose kid died because they were kicked by a horse.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, sucks.
Yeah,
rural.
It does. Yeah, rural dangers.
Yeah,
you know.
Mm-hmm.
They should do some like I want to see some like real scare media about like moving out of the country and like the terror of threshers and horses.
What you are looking for, my friend, is the Chevy Chase movie Funny Farm.
Oh, I'm not familiar with Funny Farm.
It's not that. It's not what you're asking for.
Yeah, that's the terror of bad roofing and termites. Like, yeah, I watched that movie more than it deserved. Which is to say more than once, but I watched it enough times where I'm embarrassed to say how many times I saw it because it was on HBO during a summer.
Well, of course, yeah.
So thanks everybody for your responses to our games. If you have anything to say about November's games, which are The Last Express, Simpsons Hit and Run, or Deus Ex Human Revolution, hit us up at duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yes. And if you have things to say about December's games, the deadline for that is going to be December the 15th. But what are those games, you ask? Well, we're going to tell you right now.
A lot of temerity. I can tell you that.
Yeah. So we're doing something a little bit different this time. It is still going to be Western RPGs, but we're picking kind of a theme for this. It is manageable Western RPGs. So we've got 2 games this time instead of a massive undertaking.
So first up in December, we're doing a 2-parter. Both of these are patron requested. We're doing a 2-part episode on Tyranny.
I've wanted to play this game since it came out, since you gave it a good recommendation. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being a real bastard of a king.
You get to be a real bastard king. It does delicious evil as well or better than any game I have played. My understanding, hearing other people talk about it, is not all of the pathways are equally done. The one I naturally gravitated towards, I don't want to poison a well, was very satisfying for me.
Cool.
The combat is a cilantro thing. You'll either like it or not, but I dig it.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to take this opportunity to play the DLC just because I never have. I might end up doing a tight 5 on it.
Yeah.
It won't be full coverage, but I would like to talk about it just because I'm due for a replay regardless. And then our premium episode for that month is another patron request. We are doing Jade Empire.
Yeah. This is going to be. Does this count as modern BioWare?
It is. It's right in that KOTOR like mid period.
Yeah.
That's on the cusp. Like we're working our way towards modern BioWare slowly. So doing Jade Empire, which is a game I played and never beat when it came out, and I'm looking forward to revisiting it because it's probably the BioWare title that I know the least that isn't like a later Mass Effect that I didn't like explicitly bounce off of.
Right.
So
yeah.
Really excited about that.
And we are getting into planning out next year. Lots of good stuff coming up.
Giving just a tiny little taster preview is the first thing we're covering in the next year. Also could arguably be on this theme, even though it's not quite. So get ready for that.
Yeah.
In that first month, because it's going to be it's looking forward. Looking at the first quarter, we got an extremely Gary friendly, like from Human Revolution onwards. It's real Gary. It's like Gary's all the way down for a while.
Yeah. We're going to need to fix that. So
yeah, it's because Cole hates these games. Cole, he hates BioWare. So really looking forward to that. If you would like to, since we are starting to schedule for next year, a couple of people have already done this. If you want to dictate a game, the way you can do that is going to patreon.com/duckfeed.tv.
Yes.
And we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, just the usual stuff. Please share us with your friends. Thank you to everybody who came out to the Portland Retro Games Expo. This is the first episode we recorded after that event. It was a good time. We met a lot of you, and we're looking forward to doing it again.
Yeah, that live episode will come out in January as well.
Yes.
So if you didn't make it, you'll be able to hear the audio from that. That was a fun experiment. So, yeah, and I think that's probably about it.
I think so.
So we appreciate you. And until next time, good night.
Good night.